Showtime! Showtime!
What's going on?
4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, hopefully if we did everything right, the audio should kick in. We're just going to test for that. Perfect. Okay. Hello, everyone out there. Hi, SysRG201. Nice there with the 201 there for New Jersey. And hi, Dusademon and everyone watching here. Welcome to the DEFCON 201 November meetup. I'm going to make this really... I don't know why the logo is up. Dear Lord, this is not Crypto Barons. What's going on? Yeah, it's obviously it's not a DC 201 meeting unless there's some crazy technical difficulties going on, and we had to do a bunch of them like literally 2 minutes before we were supposed to start streaming. And if you're on Incent, the rewards are already going off here. Just want to do the quick spiel, and then we're going to get right into it since we're a bit behind. My name, I'm Side Pocket. I'm one of the two co-founders of DEFCON 201. We run a group called DEFCON 201. We run a computer hacker group that, see, this is how crazy everything is, like my hair. We run a computer hacker group that's based out of Jersey City, New Jersey. This is our monthly meetup. If you want to know more about us, you can go to the URL at www.defcon21.org or follow any of our social media. We also want to note for this meeting that we are currently collecting donations for RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. I know that's a lot of big words, but hear us out. It's basically the #1 nationwide support group for people who suffer from any sort of sexual violence or harassment. I'm sure everyone knows someone. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are watching who are unfortunate victims of that because there's no patch for humans. We're going to try to make this month and possibly leaning into next month, a $400 goal, but any amount of donation that you sent in, we will actually see and receive. So if you're on Twitch, you can scroll down and donate directly through there. If you're not on Twitch, in a moment I will post the URL for the for when you could donate. So anyhow, getting right into it, this theme's monthly meetup is Hacking Sex. This is where we get to try to see how sensitive the censors are, and this is also going to be the first time that we're broadcasting both on Facebook and for a unique first, because originally we were going to do this for Exotica, which is a giant pornography convention in New Jersey, Chatterbait. So hi, all the Chatterbait people out there. Unfortunately, can't send tokens to us. That will be in the future, but we just thought it'd be amusing that instead of the usual boobs and private parts, that you would get some edumacation from hackers, although still involving boobs and private parts. Anyhow, we're going to kind of get right into this because we had a huge schedule, and that means, unfortunately, I'm only going to show part of the pre-show, but we're going to get right into the pre-show and then our first speaker in a couple of moments. So I hope you enjoy, and be aware for the donation link in the chat in a moment. So enjoy this.
Hi everyone, thank you. My name is Ben Actus. This is Pwn, all the porn apps. Thanks for having me at B-Sides Vegas. I'm super stoked to be here. A little bit about me. I started my career at MITRE, which is a federal research lab. I did a lot of mobile security there. I also did a lot of network sensor work as well. Then I went to Lookout, where I reversed thousands of Android malware samples and some iOS ones as well. Then I spent a year and a half at Synac, where I helped build their mobile attacking toolchain. So how do you at scale reverse apps, statically look for vulns, dynamically look for vulns? I also did a lot of mobile pen tests there too. All of the work today is done under my side business, Cyber Merchants of Death, where I do a lot of bug bounties and training in this area too. So a little bit outline, we'll go through the motivation, a little bit of Android 101 so you understand some of the vulns if you're kind of a novice. Then we'll go through 3 vulnerabilities in apps and easy fixes. So motivation here, we're all humans at the end of the day. Some of us have, sexual urges, and some of us choose to use adult content or pornography apps to meet those urges. But the privacy of these apps are pretty important, right? And there can be some serious consequences if our usage of these apps are inadvertently leaked to others, right? One such example, this is from the New York Post. Users were targeted with a malicious application. The idea was users would be tricked to installing like a video codec or an adult content app. What this app would really do would film the user without their consent, right? And then a video would be used to blackmail them and say basically, pay me $500 or I share this with a bunch of people, right? So as you can imagine, this would be really damaging to relationships, professional ones, kind of you name it. But in addition to the privacy violation, there's also an actual physical human impact here.
And that was the pre-show so far. Again, I apologize. I believe what we're going to do is we're probably going to extend the meeting timeline. So if we have a blank spot because, you know, certain people might not come in, we actually had all this meticulously planned and then computer errors because, you know, computer hackers, what do we know about computers? But if we have time, I will play the entire pre-show at the end as content because it's really cool. But just because our main speaker, one of our speakers here, has sort of a time limit, we're going to get straight into that. Yes, computers are very hard for no reason. Hard. Again, hacking sex. And speaking of hacking sex, I want to introduce our first speaker here real quick. So I heard about him during, I mean, he's going to introduce himself real quick, but he was one of the coolest things I think that I saw at, if I remember correctly, it was QueerCon 2017. QueerCon is the LGBT sort of hangout section at DEFCON every year. And without further ado, hopefully, as long as the tech stuff goes right, I have Alex Lomas, and he's going to be talking about GPS dating apps and how they leak your data, plus a little bit of teledildonics. So if give me one moment, I'm going to swap over to the screen here. Okay, so Alex, if you are on and you are ready, we are ready to go for you. Hello, I'm just going to double check to make sure there's audio coming through. Can you talk for a little bit? So I just want to make sure. There's audio coming through. Can you talk for a little bit? So I just want to make sure. There's a bit of a delay. Let's give it a second. There's a bit of a delay. Let's give it a second. Okay, hold on a moment. Sorry, just, I know you have a time limit here, sir, so just give me a moment. Okay, that might have solved that. Could you just say a sentence and then I'll let you know when to go?
Hello from lovely England.
Just say a sentence and then I'll let you know when to go. Okay. So for some reason the audio is not picking up on Jitsi for this. Okay. Give us one moment. We're just gonna fix, I guess, what's the one remaining audio issue on here, and it's on our end. It's not. It should not be your end. So here we go. So when I hear it, I just hear it through like the speaker. I don't hear it. Unless, wait a minute, do I have the thing muted? I think I may have solved the audio problem here. Okay, can you say a sentence? I'm an idiot.
I'm not an idiot. Oh, good. All right, and you can see my screen okay?
Can see your screen.
Perfect, I will begin. So hi, I'm Alex. I work for Pentest Partners in the UK. I lead up our aerospace research and client testing work, but I'm going to be talking to you about something completely different. And that's the privacy implications of the use of location in dating apps and in teledildonics. Next slide. There. So there's no nudity, but we will be discussing adult themes. So caution advised if you're watching with kids or you're out in public or somewhere like that. So back in 2019, a colleague and I started to look at dating apps. And I called this view of my test phone at the time, my screen of loneliness. And we wanted to see if there are any common good or bad things about them. Now, just because an app is listed up on that screenshot doesn't necessarily mean we found anything specifically good or bad. It's just to show that we kind of looked at an awful lot at the time. And one of the biggest issues we found was the use of things like the Facebook SDK, which is not only used for app metrics, but for sign-in as well. Many apps used the Facebook Account Kit SDK at the time as well, which allowed you to sign in using an SMS or email. It wasn't a Facebook account, it was a code sent via text message. Now, this SDK was removed by Facebook this year, so that broke quite a lot of dating apps at the time. Now, in Grindr's case, we found leakage of exact locations off to Braze, which is an ad and metrics platform. And the latitude and longitude, the location here, was down to 6 decimal places. So that's more than enough to identify a house. So even if the dating app itself was hypothetically secure, you might actually have issues with interception of these requests off to these ad and metrics platforms, or from the metrics platforms themselves. Now, many of these apps work by giving you back a distance to a profile for a supplied location, so you can see who's nearby for a hookup maybe. But if we spoof our location to that API directly, we can get distances from each of our spoof locations. And effectively where the 3 circles overlap is where our profile user is. Now, again, due to the stored accuracy, this will often give us a house. And during my testing, I found even when I was indoors, I could actually see myself at different ends of the office or my house. Even, the fact that I was indoors and getting a poor GPS signal. So, you can tell it's pretty accurate. Now, in the case of one app that we looked at, 3Fun, we didn't even need to use this triangulation method, as it just returned the exact coordinates down to 6 decimal places in the responses in the mobile app. Now, it did that even when you chose to hide your distance in the mobile app. That hiding was only in the client user interface. So the information was returned regardless, and it was up to the mobile app to choose to render it or not. Now, it also returned a person's full date of birth and URLs to everyone's private pictures, which were mostly people's faces or genitals or both, which we've pixelated here. And obviously, location and someone's face, more than enough to de-anonymize someone. So at the time, we wrote a tool that exploited the triangulation and other vulnerabilities in Grindr, Recon, Romeo, and 3Fun. And we presented this into one map view. And at the time, back last year, this exposed the near real-time locations of about 10 million people. So it was really, really scary. So this is a view of central London. Each of the apps is in different colors. And after we went public with our research and a couple of the app makers fixed their vulnerabilities, we actually destroyed all our code and all of the data that we'd collected during our research. It was just too horrific to hang on to. But I guess we're responsible. Others may not necessarily be. But it's not just dating apps that this is a problem with. And this is some research from about a month or so ago, actually. So this is the Cellmate, and it is a Bluetooth chastity cage, and it has a mobile companion app. And bluntly, you can lock up someone's junk remotely. And the idea is that you can give control over the locking and unlocking to someone else. And this has definitely seen an increase in popularity with the global pandemic. And frankly, the idea is a positive one. And there have been many teledildonics apps over the years, like the Love Ends Hush, and being able to stay connected and play with your partner whilst apart is even important. Is it important now more than ever? But I really, really quickly found that the Cellmate mobile app had absolutely no authentication of any kind. And it had an account enumeration issue as users were identified by a 6-digit code. So with this, you could retrieve people's plain text passwords. Yes, they were storing your passwords and returning them in plain text. A user's exact GPS location that we've mapped a sample of here. All of their private messages. And maybe more interestingly is that you could lock people in or out of their devices. Now, I guess some might see that as a feature, but I kind of think you still need to have opt-in consent for that. And I suppose that was the point of the app after all, was that you could consensually hand over control to someone else. But in practice that was maybe not so. Disclosure was really difficult, and the device and app maker eventually stopped responding to all communications, and we really struggled with the ethics of what to do. The vulnerability was really trivial to find, but at the same time, if we went public, as we might normally do after a 6-month period, then it would be quickly exploited. So we decided to sit on it. Then actually we were contacted by 2 other researchers who independently found the same problem. So we grouped together and we gave the vendor an ultimatum. They didn't fix it, and in the end we issued a really heavily redacted blog post, and it gained a lot of press attention. A couple of days after we went public, the vendor did fix the problems, but by this point people were receiving messages on this app asking for ransom payments, but it wasn't really clear if they had actually been breached or not, whether it was just someone chancing their arms and sending messages to people on there. The vendor were really uncommunicative. They ended up posting press releases and then taking them down. It was just really terrible customer communications. And since then, they've launched a really stripped down app that just does the locking and unlocking. There's none of the social features or anything like that. So it was a really, really bad experience, if I'm honest. I guess what I want to say is that the risks here aren't necessarily abstract ones. There are people who feel spurned or jilted for whatever sick reason, and these apps can be used to track someone's location in near real time. Android, depending on the version, potentially runs location tracking in the background continuously. iPhones only do it for 10 minutes in the background, so maybe that's slightly limited. But both in the US and UK, people have lost their jobs for being outed as users of fetish dating apps, people like teachers and healthcare workers. So it's really important to protect them from showing up at their employer's office, for example. But worst of all, I guess, are nation states that actively go and arrest and persecute LGBT plus people. And this is again a screenshot of the dating app research from last year. Now, kudos to Grindr in this case. They do withhold location data in countries with poor human rights records, but these other 3 apps did not. So to reiterate, if you know someone's username, you can track that person in real time, where they live, where they work, where they're socializing, who they're meeting up with and stuff. So location leakage is a really common problem in this space and can potentially seriously affect all kinds of users. Now, Apple have done some good work here recently with their approximate location feature in iOS 14, which uses sort of like an adaptive grid and snaps you to these areas rather than giving you a rounded or exact location. But app makers could do the same to protect Android users as well. And this is actually what Recon, one of the apps that we looked at, did last year, in fact, well before Apple. So kudos to them on that. And really, app makers should be really clear about what they're collecting, what for, and how you might opt out of some of these ads and metrics and things like that. So that's it. That's a really quick run through. Please do go have a look at our blog. There's a lot more technical info on both those issues, much more I could rattle through in 15 minutes, but it's well worth the read, I promise. I don't know if I'm taking questions, but happy to do so, or DM me on Twitter or whatever. But thanks very much.
Okay, give me one moment here. All right, so I believe all the audio should work now. Thank you for that talk, Alex. We do want to hang around for everyone who's currently in chat watching now. If you have any questions about the topic at hand for Alex with GPS tracking and hacking into why, which is one of my questions, is about IoT. Why are there IoT sex toys in the first place? Please let us know in chat, and we will relay that over. And we're a little flabbergasted right now, so thank you for all the people who currently followed us. So I will start with my own questions. Hopefully you can hear me, Alex. How has the when you approach, let's say, Grindr with these exploits, or like basically how has been the vendor response to your findings in the past and currently?
Grinder was not great, to be honest. They were really unresponsive, and to be upfront, several people had raised the issues with Grinder well before we had as well, and had basically been ignored. Recon were really good. They worked through the problem with us and asked for our advice, which is where we came up with this sort of adaptive snap to grid stuff with them. They implemented it just before we went public with this at DEFCON last year, actually. So that was really nice to see. 3Fun were quite responsive, but they were a little bit, sorry to say, clueless about how to fix it. So again, it needed a bit of help from us doing that. Romeo, they sort of acknowledged the problem, and they kind of pointed us to like an FAQ that they buried on their website. And actually, the Romeo app, I've not checked it recently, to be honest, but at the time, there is a functionality inside the app that allows you to spoof your location inside the app, so you could move yourself somewhere else. But that required you to open the app once, and so you would leak your exact location at least once before you got around to doing that, if you even knew that functionality was there. So yeah, and the cellmate thing was just a car crash. It was really bad. In the end, it was actually a chance sort of tweet, and Internet of Dongs ended up reaching out from sort of and said, "Oh, I don't suppose you're working on this, are you?" And actually, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I am." And we'd actually been all working on it kind of together, 3 people in the end, sort of in parallel without knowing about each other. So that kind of really was the driver into sort of going, well, look, 3 of us have found this independently. We can't really sit on this for much longer. And the only tool we have left now is to disclose, which is really just to sort of try and draw users' attention to it. I mean, I didn't go into detail, but we'd actually approached a number of retailers before we went public in the UK, asking them to withdraw the product from sale. And one did, actually. So it's really difficult. It was one of the most ethically challenging disclosures I think I've ever done.
Thank you for the research on that. And also, I just wanted to shout out to thank you. I believe it was Lunacy who followed us. We have a question from a chat which asks, in your opinion, what is currently the best app as far as privacy concerned for doing this sort of GPS dating stuff?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's really difficult because you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. So it's uncommon to find things like certificate pinning in play. So it sort of depends what your threat model is, I suppose. I mean, if you're in a country like Saudi Arabia, then the threat to you is quite high. But if you're in the UK, I guess maybe less so, I suppose. I guess from a sort of location perspective, the iOS 14 location accuracy feature is definitely a good one. You will never be where you really are. You'll be close to, but so the sort of finding people nearby will still work reasonably well, but it won't actually reveal your true location. So that's positive, but it's really hard to juggle multiple identities on the internet. I'm sure everyone knows. If you have multiple Twitter accounts, Twitter's going to know that you're signing in from the same phone all the time. So I think it's difficult, just in dating in general, using these things. If you're wanting to meet someone eventually, you're kind of going to have to de-anonymize yourself at some point, aren't you? So tricky. Sorry not to give you a great answer.
I think you kind of summed it up there by saying dating is difficult in general, and the technology and the people around just make it worse. I just want to also reiterate again that if anyone has any questions in chat for our speaker or any of our future speakers, please let us know. Otherwise, keep lurking, keep learning. And I'm going to do a shout out to, because someone just donated $5 to our RAIN charity fund, so thank you for that. So I have a couple more questions since we have a couple more minutes. Oh, just someone popped up in chat with a question. Someone just asked, do dating apps have built-in chat, and if so, should that use end-to-end encryption? I guess basically, are you aware of any of these sort of things that use end-to-end encryption, and like, does that even matter with the sort of exploits going on?
None that I've looked at have end-to-end encryption, to be honest. I mean, it was 9 months ago was the last time I looked at this, so it's possible they've done it since, but generally no. All of the stuff that we looked at, if you can intercept TLS on the wire, then you can view the contents of messages. And I know a fair number of dating apps have administrator access to profiles and messages. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I suppose from a safety perspective and anti-spam perspective, that might be desirable. But then from a privacy perspective, particularly if you're in countries with poor human rights, that may not necessarily be a good thing. So I guess they're a good place to meet people, but if you're really worried about that, then shift your conversation off to another platform.
That's interesting. So unless there's more in chat, question I guess on my end, because I have a couple picks. I'll keep you here if you don't mind, just for like 4 or 5 more minutes. Yeah, because I know it's like super late where you are. Have you encountered anything with, as you said, you're in the UK, of any sort of things with different countries and international laws between these different applications? Like, for example, I know even though the UK is trying to do the Brexit thing, that like Europe has very different internet and privacy such laws than America. Same thing with Australia. Has that affect any of this discourse at all?
Not really. I mean, obviously the UK is still technically part of the EU until the 31st of December. GDPR still applies here. And actually the UK's Information Commissioner was pretty much instrumental in drawing up GDPR in the first place. So I very much doubt UK legislation will change markedly from what it is today, even though it's going to be maybe technically separate. I think from a sort of information governance perspective, I imagine if you want to continue to operate, then we'll have to align our laws and things between UK and EU, even though they're kind of separate, just to make sure that people can continue to work. But things like the cellmate, all the data was hosted in China. It's all on Ali Cloud. So, even though they're selling physical products in the UK, the app is on global app stores. The data and such is all hosted in China. That's not, a thing against China specifically, but all of these things are transnational. So yeah, I mean, they are pretty much horrifically in breach of GDPR in the UK and EU, and whatever other jurisdictions they were selling their wares in. But the chances of being able to implement a fine against a Chinese resident company is pretty minimal. So we still have quite a lot of work to do on a national stage around these things. And just from my personal opinion is that financial and healthcare apps have really stringent testing and legislation around them, but dating apps have nothing. But they're dealing with very, very similar levels of sensitive data. In fact, probably more so in certain circumstances. At least you get your money back if you have your bank account emptied, usually. So my personal opinion is that dating apps really ought to be held to a really high standard, and they're just not really at the moment.
It's kind of funny because this sort of relates back to, we constantly complain about in this country of what we call the United States Puritanism, and how one of the reasons why we like to cover the topic of like sex stuff is because people are like, oh, it's just like dick jokes and stuff, but then like you see in the news the whole the Muslim prayer app, which had a backdoor in it for Pentagon spying, and like they usually kind of test bed this stuff with like sex and dating and things, and then when that happens they push it onto everything else. I only have you here for like a minute or two, so I'm guessing there's so many questions, so unless someone has a last minute question in chat, my question would be is that I know that it's really hard, like trying to secure the physical phone itself, but that what would you recommend if someone like wanted to make like an open source like a dating app? Like, what provisions would you say that would allow them to trounce their competition here in terms of privacy and security?
Wow, that's really difficult. It's a really hard topic. I mean, just by their nature, you're going to have to store stuff on your servers. So, hardening your infrastructure is really important. Getting your mobile app tested, I think, is really important. I don't see, if you one of the funny things that I did in my original slide deck was if you search for the word security, or if you went looking for security.txt on any of these makers' websites, you found nothing. So yeah, I guess just being more open and honest with people about where your data is stored, and whether you've had it reviewed, all that kind of stuff. I think that being transparent and honest about stuff, we're not expecting perfection. There's no such thing as perfect security, right? But at least having things tested, having a disclosure policy, and making it really easy for researchers and others to contact you if they find something. I think that's really important.
Awesome. So I guess I will leave this off because I know you're a busy man and it's almost stupid o'clock over there. How can people reach out to contact you if they want to ask further questions, or they kind of want to follow kind of the research of what you do currently?
Yeah, so I'm at Alex Lomas on Twitter. So yeah, follow me on there. Yeah, my day job is airplanes. So if you like airplanes, that's great. There's lots of stuff on our research on our pentestpartners.com as well. But yeah, if anyone's got questions, my DMs are open, so just shoot me a line.
Yes, which you've done. It's also funny because we've actually been looking into in the near future of doing hopefully some talks about like airplane stuff. So we might contact you back and hopefully host it at a more comfortable time. But yes, enjoy your night, and thank you for that enlightening view on the subject. Unless you got a quick question, sir. So okay, I think he's been blown away. So if you want to hang around, that's fine. Without enjoy your day, sir. Thank you, Alex.
Cool. You're very welcome. Cheers.
Yes, cheers. So yes, that was Alex with GPS dating app stuff. And if you ever see me look down, it's because I'm kind of doing minor things with phones, trying to update something because I just remembered of updating something that I haven't updated yet. So craziness. So what we're going to get into now is I'm going to do a quick talk about something I'm really passionate about. And if anyone has any questions, chat, let me know. And then we're going to go on an intermission and then go right in the meat and potatoes, because you saw 2 more people popped in for some truly amazing talks that will be the core of this of tonight. So let me talk about my stuff. Now, be fair here. One of the issues that I had is that I was supposed to do a slide deck for this, and that didn't happen today because I had to get COVID testing and other important things. And also, I originally was supposed to order this in physically, and I do have some of this stuff in physically, but the United States Postal Service, I guess no one had told them that the elections are over, so they can stop turning everything like into China trade tariffs, and nothing has arrived here. Much like a lot of stuff with a lot of lockpickers, if you're in the United States, everything is slow. So I'm just gonna presentate this as is here. So I think I do have a schedule here. So my talk I want to talk about is, I've titled this, I don't know if I could say this on air, but I guess biatch picking, designing a lockpick set for sex workers. Now, I want to go over to the Sparrows website and kind of bring up of what I mean by this. And actually, I probably should have grabbed my physical lockpicking set somewhere, but I didn't think to do that beforehand. So I guess I'm just going to wing it. If you can actually find it, it might be in my room. Okay. Actually, it is in my room. It's on the heater. So here's the thing about Lockpick Sex. So if a lot of people don't know, I do a show that's actually going to have a new episode this Sunday called The Master of Unlocking, where I teach people how to pick locks. And also, if anyone can hear me or can't quite hear me, thank you, Saracel. Please let me know. And of course, if you want to follow, I'm going to try to shout out for stuff. Thank you for following, hit that bell, just like subscribe on Twitch, DLive, YouTube, and now Facebook, and ironically Chatterbait. So hi all the people with no pants on with Chatterbait. Although I'm pretty sure there's also a lot of people watching Twitch with no pants on for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I may have pants on, I may not have pants on, but you don't know because I'm sitting down.
He has pants on, guys.
Yes, that's for the AIs. I has pants. I just don't has cheeseburger. And again, real quick, we're also donating to the RAIN, which is the international. RAIN. I just screwed up the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, and GI Jack. That's why he's in his room because he doesn't have pants on right now. Our co-founder. So if you do want to donate, and we had a $5. Real quick, I just want to shout out. We had a $5 donation earlier. So I want to shout out to thank you. SysRG201 for that $5 donation there to Rain. And again, when you donate money to Rain, we don't handle it. That's all done through Tiltify, and which is like a third-party charity group. And also that even if we don't reach our goal, let's say it stays $35 forever, which I doubt it is, all the money is going to go towards the charity anyhow. So any little bit helps. I know everyone is like really tight on money, including myself. But if you have $1, $5, $10, everything good, please let me know. Anyhow, let's get into my talk here. So basically, so I know a lot of sex workers. Don't ask why. To be honest, it's I'm an insomniac, and this is what happens when you're in New York at 2 a.m. in the morning and you wander into some bar somewhere and you just meet the coolest mix of people. That's how I've met a lot of computer hackers. That's how I've met drag queens and circus performers and, of course, sex workers. And whether it's being in handcuffs or being stuck on a door in a venue, where I actually was literally in a situation once where I was at a strip club. This is fun testing the sensors on here. And basically, someone was hogging the bathroom, and the bathroom door auto locks, and it turns out you just need a really strong magnet, and then we kick the drunk person out. But but yeah, there's a whole bunch of situation where lockpicks would probably be a good idea. And a lot of people are, I actually posted this on my own personal accounts of, hey, I just had a brain fart of designing like a pre-made lockpicking kit set for sex workers, and would anyone be interested? And there was a lot of people interested, but I did have a bunch of people, rightfully so, kind of ask, well, you know, if you're in this field and you really need a set of lockpicks because, you know, dangerous reasons or, you know, whatever, why couldn't you just go out and just get a lockpicking set? And there's a couple of issues with that that hopefully I will detail, and I'm actually going to go to Southward's site to explain what I mean. So first of all, let me take some actual lockpicks out. This is my personal set. This is probably the shortest turning tool, bottom of the keyway tension turning tool I have normally seen for lockpick sets. And if you also notice, most lockpicks, which is why this case is so long, and I'm going to get into this case back in a moment, lockpicks are generally slightly shorter than your average ballpoint pen. So that's a lot of real estate to hold up. Bigger issue is if you can see the cases on Southward, and Southward does make decent cases, and I have a Southward case here, and this is not just Southward. If you get Peterson's or Sparrows or any of these cases, they're designed not only just for big lockpicks, but this is designed for like either a hobbyist or someone who actually does locksmithing. This is like designed to go in your pocket or in the field, and you have to physically take it out in front of you, zip it open it up, and like individually take them out and pre-plan stuff. Not only is that would be difficult to do, let's say if you were in a limited room or you were in literally a bind, but if a police officer or someone who's suspicious of you sees a giant leather case like this, whether it zips or snaps or whatever, even if they don't know what a lockpicking case set looks like, and it doesn't help that a lot of lockpicking tools come in little baggies, people might think these are, they might think they are this is like a wallet, or drugs might be in here, or nefarious tools, things like that. So this is, especially if you're wearing something like a dress or lingerie or something, it's a giant red flag. Also, this is designed for pockets, and I mean, my shorts here have pockets in them, but like if you're wearing lingerie or a revealing outfit or even just a dress, I'm pretty sure a lot, particularly ladies and people identify as female out there, will know most dresses don't come with pockets. Where the heck are you going to put this thing? So even if you found a place to try to find a place to put these giant leather cases that are designed as like a tool case, and even if you can find a place to put it, this sticks out like a sore thumb. So my thought is we could do better with this, and I want to get into really quick what I'm sort of looking for putting this together, and I will have a full list as a blog post probably later on into next week, early next week before Thanksgiving, as well as basically my solution to the pick design and the case design. I'm going to go into Sparrows a lot just because I think they have some good details. First of all, I want to make these picks shorter. And Sparrows already has a set that's called the Nightcrawler set, and essentially what they are is those giant picks that I showed. Let me grab one again. Let's take out this... this is like a super crappy one. Let's take out a decent one here. These picks that I showed earlier, The night crawlers are slightly under half the size of a normal pick, and they've designed the handle so, as you can see here, there's little spines on them. So even though they're half the size, because remember, it's not the size that counts, it's the technique. That's what they say in lockpicking. The spines would grip into your hands properly. And the key here, and someone wrote, Justice with pockets are the unicorns of the fashion world, exactly. And so while I think the default set is neat, I kind of want to really zero on, okay, what are the tools that you would actually need? And I want to propose of making these sort of nightcrawler miniature spines with a small bottom of the keyway tension 2 and the cranial, which means it's textured, top of the keyway pry bar, but have 4 of these. So we're not going to use, we're going to keep 2 of these designs in here in terms of the actual lockpick heads and change something else. So I would keep, I would either use either an offset hybrid, Sparrows also calls it the Tron possibly, and I also would probably keep the Bogota or the triple peak. Maybe the City Rake in exchange, maybe have 2 different kits depending on which one you have with that. But I also want to propose to make 2 things with the spines that they currently don't have, and in a minute or 2 we will go directly into the next speaker. One is an amazing lockpick that was designed by Locknoob. It was originally called the Boomslang. Sparrows calls it the Medusa. And what I like about this is that it's a hybrid tool, meaning that the one side, that little curved tip because attacking sex, you basically use it on 2 sides. So one side has a curved tip and you can use that single pin pick. When you flip it over, it has the 2 bumps so you can rake. So automatically, if we can shrink this down and make it in that Nightcrawler spine format, you have a double bump raking side, maybe modify it, make it a triple bump if possible, and a picking side all in one tool. So I think that would be really handy to use multiple. Basically, you have a single pick and a raking all in one set, and it's really accurately designed. The other spine version that I would like to make, this is called the Scarab, but in technology world, this is known as a strike pick. This would be instead of this, because these picks are huge because it has that huge scarab, these would have the similar spines and would have the same wavelengths as the scarab. And what you would do is, a strike pick is you put tension on the lock and you stick that in there, and with the tension, when you pull it out, it does a really good job of jostling all the different key pins and driver pins so it lines up. So if you do a zip it once or twice and it opens, they're really well designed. So I basically want to keep kind of the single kind of Tron offset hybrid pick and possibly probably the City Rake, and then put in which they've never made, a spine version of that Boomslang Medusa, and then one of the Scarab. A couple of other ideas that I want to put in there is that in addition to the spines, I want to see if maybe I could get some inspiration here from what are called the mace picks. And what's cool about these is, while I do want to put in a default bottom and top of the keyway tension, what's cool about the mace picks is if you kind of see the way they're like L design, you can actually use the pick as the tensioner. Again, I want to minimize the amount of tools that you can use so that you know which tool is with, and have things be like multi-purpose and unified. So like, what if you lose your tension tools? You can possibly maybe have a little extension at the spine at the end so that you can use these individual tools also as the tension tools. A couple more things I want to quickly add in here is I want to add in a couple of lockout keys, or essentially sort of general wafers that can work on car doors and certain like suitcase wafer locks and stuff like that. I also want to put a flex pass in this, which is sort of like a metal object that you can use to try to jostle the door bolt open to either pull in or push. And then 2 more things. One is Sparrows has a cool design that's called the Motel Keys. It's a set of the 4 most common keys like Quickset and Schlag, and you can notice that it's broken up into 2 sections. And so one section, that bottom section with that little curve tip in there, you insert that into the lockway, and what that will do is basically blocks the keyway and holds all the pins there with the back pin. So you can't physically, whether it's through force or trying to lockpick, you can't do anything with it. The only way you'd be able to open it is to have the other half of the key, you slide that in there and you can pull that out. This would allow sex workers to be able to choose which doors they want to keep locked in permanently, so that even if the person that they have to encounter with knows how to get around mechanisms, this would thoroughly bind the entire keyway and would basically give the sex worker or the person who is using this in control. Finally, because this is a 2-in-1 combo, and this leads quickly to the other 2 main things, and then I will promise I'll be done. One is a thing called Saint Chaos. it has, which I should probably also throw in a couple of spares here, all-purpose handcuff keys. These are like, I actually have a metal one on here that, while it doesn't work on every single type of handcuff, it's specifically designed, and I actually realize it's not in this case. I put it somewhere else. It's probably actually up here, but it's designed to, well, in this case, these actually are universal, so it would work on most handcuffs, and probably also a little piece of metal to shim. And what's neat about the St. Chaos is it breaks out of, once you break that one out, it actually has a defensive knife point that you can put with your middle finger and have that point, so that if you need to self-defense, you could do that. Also not pictured here, a long piece of metal where not only could you possibly shim the lock with it, but also use it to shim if you have handcuffs, to actually shim the binding for the handcuffs. Two quick last things that I think would be impervious to that. And again, if anyone has any cool design ideas, or if you're a sex worker and you have any opinions about this, please let me know. I need feedback. One of these is kind of the article here, and unfortunately there's a picture there. I did ask people in the lock world around, and even though I think super latest advanced metal detector wands will pick this up, but only if they're set, like if they're actually looking for this. I'm worried about making it out of polymers. I'd want to do a test with that, because that's what like the St. Andrews is made out of. But I'm probably going to try, at least initially, to make all the picks out of titanium. Not only can these things can be tiny and sturdy with the titanium, but again, titanium, especially for your generic like airport wands and stuff, won't pick them up. Obviously, the full density scanners that will pick that up, but again, it's just if you're at a checkpoint or there's a police officer and they have a wand and they wave that around, they wouldn't know that that's on you. A person wrote, if the leggings are pants, then a hot dog is a sandwich. Exactly. And speaking of that, and this is the last point, we're going to go directly into speaker. I've talked about picks and what they're made out of, but as I brought up, having this type of case is just ridiculous. Again, this sticks out like a sore thumb, and I've actually ordered this, so I'll probably show this on a future episode of Master of Unlocking. Here's what I actually want to use as the case. There is an amazing product out there that is called the Girly Go Garter, and what it essentially is it's a industrially designed garter belt. So it looks like a normal garter belt, but it has pockets in it. It's designed to, you wear it on your leg and it wraps around, it blends in with lingerie and dresses, and it can take something as large as a cell phone, and you can store up to 3 pounds of material in this thing. So what I want to do is I've ordered one, and I'm going to get that in the mail, and I have a friend of mine who's way better at clothing than I am, and we're kind of not to rip this off, but kind of reverse engineer just to see how they did the padding and stuff. And we want to make our own version of essentially a garter that's half its size, that the small oh boy, what just happened, that the small let me just check to make sure we're still streaming. Yeah, we're still streaming. That the small little that the lock picks and defensive items can actually go into. So overall, just to sum up the design, and then we will go to on our speaker here, and then I will figure out what's probably going crazy, is that I want to make something for sex work, a lockpicking kit for sex workers. I want it to be either I may have titanium or possibly polymer. I don't know why this is. Are we still? Yeah, that's why it was your range, wasn't it? Okay. And something just happened. I don't know what it was. Oh, it's the incense. But yeah, I want to make a lockpicking kit for sex workers. My pitch for this is that I want it to, we're going to test different materials, but I'm probably going to use titanium, and it probably experiment with different polymers. I want to use that sort of miniaturized nightcrawler set with the bidding. I want to reduce the amount of picks, so I essentially want to do if I want to use Sparrow's design, a Medusa, which would basically roll up a raking and picking into one, possibly an Extratron hybrid, a strike pick, and basically that, a short bottom and top of the keyway tension wrench with texturing and biting on them, and a bunch of other bypasses that would all fit into a garter half the size. Eventually, after the different garters, and we can have them in different colors, I do want to make a leather one for those who are in the BDMS community, as well as I tend to notice that male sex workers or just people in general usually are wearing leather or jock straps or things like that, and so a leather band on the arm or the leg might hold that better. But again, getting away from these cases. Said someone wrote, I would imagine there are folks who prefer in person with cash. Oh, quick, two other things. One, that's something I want to work on too, of like shipping methods. If anyone has good ideas, please let us know. And again, I'm probably going to pitch this to Sparrows because they're really good at taking ideas and iterating on them, and they're really good at working with the community. My pitch also is that if I want to talk to Sparrows, I want to link up with some sort of pro-sex worker organization or charity and basically negotiate, whether it's Sparrows or another company, to make this kit as cheap as possible, and to see if possibly maybe an organization like Rain or something could buy this in like bulk, and we give a chunk of these out for people who are already out in the field. So, but that's a little bit in there. And yeah, one more thing, I'll let you talk. But no, we're actually going to go through the speaker here. And that was just my rambling on that. I'm actually going to do the transition later on here because I have kind of these funny transitions. So we're going to go into our next speaker if she is ready. And I just want to bring this up. This is Ali Barnes. She's going to do a talk called Naked and Unafraid, the Basics of Securing Your Nudes. So, Ali, are you there? Did you properly enter in yet? Awesome. I'm just going to switch it over so everyone can hear you. Take your time with setting up, and I should be able to see, like, I don't know if you have slides or whatever, but
yeah.
And if there's a problem on your end or our end, we have basically Cell, aka tech support. He's the only reason why anything works around here. I'm not even kidding. I'm so excited to have you on here. I'm just sad that we couldn't physically be at Exotica and do this. Like, I was legit going to look into, like, flying a bunch of people over, including you and stuff, or if that didn't work, possibly, like, doing a live stream sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. I know. I was this year, right?
I know, right? And if I remember correctly, I guess while you're setting this up, you did this talk at Dallas Hackers. I think that's the first time I heard of it.
Yeah, so I did this talk the first time at Dallas Hackers Association, and then I also did it at Layer 8. And I'm trying to share my screen here, but it's not letting me. Let's see. Let's try one more time.
So real quick though, I just want to remind everyone we are doing charity donations to RAIN. That is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. I know that's a lot of wordage, but basically means we're trying to reach out and helping people who have suffered through sexual abuse. I'm not going to go into details, but I've had my own terrible stories about this. I think almost everyone has a story about it or knows someone who unfortunately has multiple, because humans suck. So we're doing this through Tiltify. When this talk goes on, we're going to post a link in chat. If you're on Twitch, you can scroll down and donate below. We also have notifications, so if we do see them, we will thank you for that. And even if we don't meet our goal by the end of the month of 400, all the money will still go to RAIN, and it's being handled by a third party known as Tiltify. So without further ado, if you're ready, take it away. I already see Kitten, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I am ready. Cool. Yep, this is my intro slide. This is my kitten Bruce. I use this as just a cheeky example for a picture throughout this presentation. So cool. Yeah, this is Naked and Unafraid, the basics of securing your nudes. So before we get started real quick, I'm Ali Barnes, Acid Goddess on Twitter. I'm a security consultant at Rapid7. Previous life, been a cloud operations engineer, lots of private cloud, OpenStack, DevOps, Linux work, and lots of nonprofit work with image abuse organizations and stuff like that as well. Cool. So let's jump into it. So what is revenge porn? Or you may also hear it referred to as non-consensual image abuse, cybersexual exploitation, phrases like that. But essentially, it's all the distribution of sexually explicit images or videos of individuals without their consent. So how common is it? Cyber Civil Rights Initiative says about 1 in 8 American social media users have been targets of revenge porn. I feel like that is only raising exponentially with everyone locked down and in quarantine and spending a lot more time on the internet now, right? Lots of kind of victims on this sort of thing, lots of sex workers, some people who are victims of revenge porn have never even made their pictures available publicly. Lots of situations where this can kind of happen to someone. So different things to talk about regarding image abuse. Exif data is the first thing I kind of want to just give a quick intro to. Think about that. And a lot of people watching this might know already what this is. So apologies if you do. This is kind of meant to be a talk aimed for, people of all ages and, technology knowledge levels, including people that are doing online sex work, that sort of thing. So bear with me if I'm going over stuff that you already know. But Exif data, so think of this like metadata information that's attached to your image files. Includes information like when the photo was taken, resolution, lots of camera information that can also include the location of where your photo was taken. So first tip I like to give regarding this is disabling geotagging on your phone. My demo here is on iOS. You can look up how to do it on Android as well. Pretty straightforward process regardless of your phone OS, but in general, just disallowing location privileges from your camera on your cell phone. The next thing is going to be, you can also just strip exits from your photos. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my cat is trying to join in on the presentation here. But yeah, so removing Exif data from your photos, there's a few different ways to do this as well. There's tons of different apps you can use on all phone OSs. iOS, I have an Apple phone, so this is kind of different ways that I went through. This Exif metadata app, which is what my video in the middle here is demoing, is one that I feel like is pretty useful for going through this. And on the left side, I have like a workflow that I found on Reddit that someone had put together for wiping image metadata off. So that's kind of cool. All right, next, and this is going to be kind of more for if you're doing, I've really only used this in CTF challenges mostly, but just from a Linux standpoint, there is the Exif tool command for viewing Exif data. You can also use that to wipe Exif data here with the -all flag like this. So yeah, again, more for a technical or Linux audience or CTF tip, but I like to bring this up during this talk just to kind of show what it looks like. And you can kind of see my before versus after here. So here I'm querying the Exif data of that picture of my cat. His name is Bruce. Querying the Exif data, and then this first command, I am wiping it, and then second command, I'm querying the Exif data again, and you can see there's a lot less data here now. One other tool that I like to kind of bring up and show during this is this image scrubber created by Everest Pipkin, and I'm gonna go ahead and play this demo. I just messed with it one day and basically uploaded one of my selfies to it. It does have a blur tool built into it, which is kind of cool. I mean, you can do this on other tools too, but kind of nice that you can it's a simple tool. Obviously keep in mind what you're uploading to this tool if you use it, which is why I used a just basic selfie to test it out. But yeah, it is kind of cool for testing with, so I like it. Again, for CTF challenges and stuff like that, or if you're just messing around, definitely recommend giving this a try out. But yeah, my demo has just blurring the photo. You can wipe Exif data from this tool as well though. All right, next thing I want to go into about safe photo sharing is watermarking. This demo that we're going to see is created by my peer Rachel. She's Ray Lamp on Twitter. She's awesome. She created this last year for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Just a demo for watermarking your images. So she adds the name of her recipient to the images, makes it super small, kind of blends it in with her skin tone or the tone of the image, hides it in the place where she knows it is, and taking into account the color of the text you pick, thinking of, people running these photos under different filters and stuff like that. Example apps for doing this sort of thing that I gathered are Pixplay and Photoshop Express. Next thing I want to talk about a little bit is going through safe photo storage of your apps. So a lot of times, and I've seen different victims of revenge porn get bitten by this a lot. Different kind of in memory, like memories features of different apps. So Snapchat memories is really the most common one that I've seen this happen on. But these apps will store your photos, and someone breaks into your Snapchat, and all of a sudden they have access to all your memories. Which essentially, if you don't have your Snapchat permissions or whatever pruned correctly, essentially have access to everything that you may have taken on that platform. So KeepSafe is a good photo storage app that I've seen recommended a lot. It does let you set like a pin for your photo storage, create albums, and organize them in here. Any password protected photo storage though is kind of what I'm getting at here. Be mindful of what apps you're using, and what has permissions to your camera roll on your phone. I know on the iOS side, the latest update has been kind of good about letting you at least explicitly set what pictures certain apps are allowed access to. But still something to be super cognizant of, especially coming from the viewpoint of being an online sex worker or something like that, where you're handing out premium Snapchats that are a very high like risk level. Okay. I'm just catching up on the questions here. Is there a way to disable geotagging for some photos but not others? I would imagine there is a way to. It depends on the the OS of the phone you're using, the photo app or camera app that you're using. I'm sure in iOS there is a way to do it. Are there apps to add a stenographic data like this in an invisible way? Not sure what you mean in an invisible way. There are apps where you can basically edit or set custom metadata for photos. So the Exif data that we just looked at, you can use, and even the app that I demoed earlier with the Exif metadata app, you can set custom metadata in there. So you could technically change the information that's attached to the photo. But yeah. All right, cool. So moving on from photo storage, next kind of tip that I like to give out is obviously gonna seem obvious. You see it preached a lot in cybersecurity, but two-factor all the things anywhere you can. Use authentication apps where you can. I like Duo. I like Authy. Google Authenticator has been around. You can use SMS. If you do use a Google Voice number or something like that. Thank you for dropping that GitHub link in there. I appreciate it. But yeah, so two-factor all the things, especially on any social media kind of stuff where you might be trading intimate photos or doing online sex work or anything like that. Protect your accounts, y'all. Quick little side kind of tangent about online sex work. Just a few kind of quick safe tips that I like to go over for this. For your social media accounts, basically you want to make soft accounts, right? Try not to link anything back to yourself. Don't use your real contact information to set up your accounts, like your recovery email for the account. Enable two-factor where you can, like we just said. Kind of think of it like you're setting up a new identity, like this first tip I have on here. Use payment platforms where you can, like Cash App. You can use, I don't really like to recommend PayPal, but a lot of people do. Just realistically use it. But keep in mind that you are probably going to be giving these payment platforms your private information. So just be sure you're trusting who you're using as a payment vendor, and just be cognizant of the fact that you're giving them your real information. Some apps like Cash App will let you put in kind of fake information at first, but they do kind of audit and monitor that stuff every once in a while. So keep that in mind when if you're doing this sort of thing. Some platforms will also ban you if they find out you're doing online sex work and it falls against their AUPs. So but definitely don't use any personal information on the public side of those, including like profile pictures. I've seen a lot of people get bitten on Cash App or PayPal where they're using a profile picture on there that they also have on Facebook or something like that. And it seems like a silly thing that you wouldn't think about, but someone with malicious intent can go and do a reverse image search on that photo, and boom, all of a sudden they have your Facebook linked to your PayPal, where you're posing as some other person but with the same picture, and collecting payment information or collecting payments for online sex work. So keep that in mind. Keep those pictures separate. Don't tell your clients your real name, no matter how nice they seem, is something I always also remind people when talking online sex work. Keep your identities separate if just to stay safe. Be mindful of the pictures that you're taking, especially if they include your face, any tattoos that you have, if you have a unique hair color that can be tied back to you easily. Be mindful of that sort of thing when you're taking photos. Use separate or like burner phone numbers where you can. There's tons of apps out there to do that. Getting payment up front is another tip that I have seen given a lot, and given myself to other online sex workers a lot. Don't provide any content before you collect payment. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. A lot of people get caught up in kind of online sextortion scams, getting caught up in stuff like that. So if you provide custom content to clients, keep a record of who's purchased what content. That can help with piracy of any images or videos that you might see getting linked or leaked. I'm sorry. Yeah, again, be cognizant of what's in your pictures. Besides your face, hair, tattoos, keep keep an eye on what's in the background of your pictures. Obviously, don't have mail or packages with your address on it in the background. Pay attention to what family or friend photos you might have in the background, or anything that might show another workplace you have that you don't want to be associated with your online sex work identity, that sort of thing. Report abusive accounts when you see them. And I also always recommend networking with peers and sharing experience regarding abusive accounts as well when doing online sex work, and being proactive, right? Google yourself. Even if you've created a whole new identity for your online sex work, Google that name and just see if anything's being leaked, being abused on image boards or anything like that, just to be proactive about it. All right. So kind of mentioned this briefly, but sort of related. I do see this a lot as well for like revenge porn blackmail or sextortion scams, where someone basically sends an email, saying like, I've hacked your webcam. I know what porn you've been watching. Send all this money to my Bitcoin wallet. It can be really scary. Everyone's watching porn pretty much, right? So it can be really scary when you read one of these emails and you're just like, oh no, who is on my computer, kind of thing. And you probably, especially if like those in the tech side of the world, have probably gotten a frantic email or message or call from a family member or friend who's like, I got this email saying this, like, what should I do? So things I always tell people, when I get approached with someone who gets an email like this is, first off, relax. Don't pay any money ever. Sounds kind of obvious, but some people just do it because they get freaked out and scared of what someone might have on you. If they do send your actual password in one of these messages, remember or remind whoever that they may have gotten it from a public password dump. They might not have even actually owned you. So it could just come all down to social engineering on these sort of things. Don't communicate or interact with the person making these threats. Don't try and reason with them. Don't, reply back and be like, screw you. Like, just ignore it. Change all your passwords. A lot of these messages will claim to have private pictures that they'll release when in reality I would say 8 times out of 10 do not actually have any content. Sending these kind of messages and email out like en masse just to mess with people and see who bites and just sends money because they're worried. All right. So what if your nudes do get leaked? If they do, breathe, know that you didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault. It does unfortunately happen. It is a part of the world we live in today with technology, especially like growing so much as it is. So if this happens, collect all the evidence that you can. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. All right. Um, Yeah, so any date or poster information that you can collect, make sure you're collecting screenshots for any of that, any and all of that. Keep track of the image file URLs as well. And some websites may or may not have a form to report non-consensual or copyright violation images. So look for something like that on the webpage as well. Try looking through their contact section or their help section. And see if there's something where you can at least go straight to the website and see if they're willing to help you out. That your mileage may vary depending on the website there. From there, you need to decide your desired outcome. Are you going to want, actually, I should back up for a second and say, look up your state's revenge porn laws. A lot of law enforcement officers may not be familiar with these laws right off the top of your head, right off the top of their head. Like if you walk into a police station or try and call and make a police report. So try and be familiar with the relevant revenge porn law to your state. And if there is no revenge porn law in your state, try and keep track or consider other crimes that posters may commit while they're also doing this, like online stalking or harassment, that sort of thing. So from there, though, you know,
If we keep hearing drops out, that's probably our weird internet spikes with Jitsi. So we'll hear you in a moment. Are you there? Can you speak? There you are. Sorry about that. That's
don't
probably
go
on
through
our
any
end.
steps to kind of take down a post. Preservation of evidence is key on these sorts of cases. As far as organizations that help with this sort of thing, March Against Revenge Porn is a good one. They aim to create awareness and education around cyber sexual exploitation and image abuse. They also do aim to educate and end the phrase revenge porn, just because kind of implies some victim blamey language in there. So usually they try and refer to it as cybersexual exploitation or image abuse, but they provide several resources to victims and can help out if you ever find yourself in this situation. So does Cyber Civil Rights Initiative. They're awesome. They have a 24-hour crisis hotline number, which I've linked here. So anything, that's happening, you can call and talk to them about it. They can give direction. They have tons of resources on their website as well. I don't have it on this slide, but there is another organization called Heart Mom who can help with people who are experiencing online harassment. So even in a case that doesn't involve sexually explicit images, Heart Mom is a great org for that. Last kind of thing I want to go over here are DMCA takedowns. So kind of how we were talking about on the last slide, where you want to kind of decide what you're going to do once your content's been leaked. This works mostly with US-based websites for filing DMCA takedowns. There are websites that can help you or do it for you file these DMCAs and fill out all the forms. DMCA Defender is one of them. It's a big one that I know Mark refers a lot of people to them. But like I said on the last slide, if you are going to pursue legal action for preservation of evidence, it's better legally if the post is still online when you bring this to law enforcement. So if you're going to pursue legal action, it might be better to wait to file a DMCA takedown notice. But if you're in a situation where you just want your content taken down, this could be a good route to go, especially if the site is US based. I recommend filing one either way because you never know, it's worth it. But yeah, you will need to get the email address of the website's DMCA agent, and you do take into account that they will forward the notice to the uploader. So use as much fake information as you can in your DMCA takedown notice, or go through a DMCA like vendor or attorney to help you out with that. Oh, and there are actually some free DMCA resources on Copybyte. So I do recommend looking them up. Copybyte, like BYTE. Yeah, there's lots of free help there too. So definitely recommend checking that out. Here are a couple links. MarchAgainstRevengePorn.org and CyberCivilRights.org are both great nonprofits that are working to help victims of image abuse and the like. And last one there is my Twitter. My DMs are open. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or anything we can go over in the future. And yeah, thanks for all y'all's time.
That was awesome. I don't know if you can stay around for like 1 or 2 minutes for questions. I actually, unfortunately, we're going to have to do different announcements because the person who was normally, although we can announce for them, who's going to do the announcement can't make it. So we actually have an extra 10 minutes. Although we're not going to use that for questions. I just want to take it. Someone in chat just asked before I asked mine's is random question, do sex workers incorporate? And I don't know if I should answer that or if you should answer that. Maybe I'll answer that. The thing is, at least for United States law, that it's insanely difficult to do because basically the United States has a giant hate boner against sex work. So any form of like unionization, and basically I'll put it this way, sex work would have to be decriminalized like in every state and federally in order to actually have incorporations in the first place. So I hope that answers your question there. But Ali, I don't know if you're still online. Are you still available to take questions, or do you need to go away? I think she had to bolt for that. Okay, well, unless there's some weird hiccup here, I want to thank Ali for her awesome talk here. I also want to quickly mention a couple of things before we move on to our next speaker. One is, I know she mentioned, and I will post links later on this, and let's actually turn on the, I had to do some background correction, turn on the video camera. There we are. There are other applications. I know our co-founder G.I. Jack just dropped one in chat, but we did actually post a while back. We should actually repost this again and do like a comprehensive blog post of, we were like trying to help out the, in the summer, the, anyone who was doing activism and protests in the summer, which are still there. They haven't stopped. But we did mention that there are multiple ways on different devices to get rid of, how you pronounce it, Exif data?
Yes.
Exif, just want to make sure I'm not stupid on camera because I do that enough times. And so some other ones they might look into for both Play Google Store and F-Droid, there's Scrambled Exif. I'll try to post the links later. If you are stuck on an iOS device, well, first of all, Apple is, but if you need to get rid of your Exif data, there is a View Exif app that will remove that. If you like using, if you like sideloading Linux in a VM or on a stick, the Tails OS from Tor Project has a inbuilt program called MAT2, M-A-T-2, that will help you remove that. And for all you oldies out there, Foobar 2000 still exists, shockingly, and it still works, and it gets updated, believe it or not. And if you're on Windows, Linux, or Mac on a desktop, that will remove that. Before we move on, because we're going to go to a quick interlude and then bring up another speaker, someone just asked, is there any way to write fake Exif data, aka to spoof a location? I believe
there's ways, yeah. Usually anything that can edit Exif data, you can add your Exif onto the file. Because it's just in the file. It's not like it's encrypted or anything for the most part.
Like, it should be. It's just like... I won't say it's tricky, but it's just sort of like, I think it would just be good to bring. And the reason why I wanted to bring up like the scrambled Exif, which is something that I use in addition to ImagePipe, is because someone asked before, like, can you get rid of Exif data for like some photos and not others? When you forward any photo to that will get rid of that, so you don't have to keep turning your phone's settings on and off if you don't have to. Jack recommend try it. You open a JPEG with hex editor, right? Because as Jack knows from some of his previous work, the hex editor is totally for using hexadecimal, right? That's not just against him. There's a funny story that one day will be told on air. Before we move on with our next speaker, because I'm trying to get through this, because we have a bit more time for them. Really awesome talk.
I did want to mention something about the incorporation question.
Okay.
Do we have time for me to just sit down and give a brief, 2-minute about it?
I can do that right after I just do the quick spiel.
Go for it.
So, real quick, again, if you want to follow us, you can follow us. We're on Twitch, DLive, YouTube. We're trying out Facebook as an experiment. And funny enough, we're on Chatterbait. And last time I checked, we actually had 12 people watching on that because it doesn't show up at the current number. So, hi, all those people out there. I don't want to know what you're doing to my face. Well, maybe I do. DM me afterwards. You have to pay for it, but I want to see. Oh, cool. We have Facebook follower. It just shows up as Facebook user. That's interesting. Well, no, because we have to. We could do more stories at the end, so I'm just getting rid of the spiel. Yeah, that's what I said in the feature. Yeah. As everything burns down, so
That's
you can.
what happens when Jack comes out of his room.
Yes. If it's hobby hole. Oh God. I hope that's not the Thurman that we know, but hi, Thurman J on DLive. On Twitch. Oh boy, I hope you're not falling through any walls this year. But I haven't seen you in forever. So yeah, exactly. So real quick, again, you can follow us on there. We do see alerts. I also tried to fix the Tiltify alerts because thank you, anonymous person who donated $20 earlier. So we're already like 1/6 away from our goal. That's still exciting. Even if we don't meet our goal, all the money still goes there. And as I'm going to post, we are trying to raise money for RAIN. That is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. I know it's heavy stuff, but basically we're trying to fight sexual abuse because human beings have not had if you think GNU herd is bad, the human brain has not had an update in like a couple 100,000 years. So we're trying to combat that sort of stuff as G.I. Jack loses his mind in chat. And
I like how he spelled it. Dumond.
so you talk a bit about incorporation, and then I will do the segue into our next speaker here. Yep. So I don't know how we're going to do that yet.
Okay.
You can also just do this.
So, someone had a question earlier about incorporating a business as a sex worker. Generally, it varies state by state because it's the states that handle incorporation and as a business.
We're gonna get you to Luna in a moment. He just wants to say this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have time.
So, essentially, because it's state by state, it's up to the state's laws whether or not it's a good idea. But generally, you don't have to tell the administrator of the records office that you're incorporating through that you're a sex worker. You could put your business as being an adult entertainment business or something similar to that. And generally, it's not really important to... Now, I'm not a lawyer, so anything I say
definitely
here,
not lawyers at DEFCON 201.
Yeah, anything I say here is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. Please consult an attorney, a business attorney, if possible, counsel. Anyway, but generally speaking, if you do make money as a business, as a sex worker, you should incorporate. And you should, follow what it takes to do things above the table. Because if the IRS finds out you're making an income that's not really, taking for, tax and everything, then they will run you up for big-time problems. So, yeah, that's the basics, ifs, ands, and buts about incorporating as a sex worker. It's an adult entertainment business. It's part of an industry. Enter the industry and understand it, but just keep that in mind. Even if you're an independent sex worker, that's where you are.
Also, thank you, Hacker Syntax, for donating $50 here. So now we are officially 1/4 away from our goal to help people against sexual abuse. And thank you, Sarah Self, for that update. And we're going to get to Luna in a moment. But speaking of butts, now this.
This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and what I have for you today is one of the most treasured cylinders in my collection, and one that I don't often share publicly. In fact, I normally only show it to my wife. It goes by many different names, but my favorite is that used by the French, so that is what we will use today. It is le coq. Now, I have had this cylinder for literally as long as I can remember. In fact, I vividly recall playing with it all the time when I was younger. And you can see from the condition that this cock has seen some hard use over the years. If you're familiar with cock cylinders, you may be thinking right about now that mine is a little on the small side. And it's true. This is only about 2.35 inches long, which makes it the smallest cock that I have ever seen. But even so, it never fails to put a smile on my face, and I've come to terms with the fact that I'll probably never have a bigger one. Now, manipulating the cock, like most other cylinders, does require a deft touch. With too much or too little force, nothing will happen, and likewise, you need to know exactly where and how to twist and push if you're going to be successful. But with all the time I've spent with this cock over the years, I have become a true master at manipulating it. So let me show you how it's done. I like to grasp the cylinder firmly with my left hand, wrapping my fingers tightly around it. And with that same hand, I apply a clockwise torque. Now that torque is pretty firm at first, but during the course of the manipulation, I tend to subconsciously vary and pulse the pressure depending on how it feels. With my other hand, I start at the tip of the cock and slowly tease the tips of the pins up, using a firm pulsing motion. And I like to work my way towards the back of the cock and then repeat those motions over and over again until we get the desired result. So let's see if we can do that right now. Now, I normally narrate when I do this, but when I manipulate this cock, I tend to lose my concentration. So we're not going to do that today. And there we go. It tends to catch me by surprise every now and then, but I'll tell you, it never gets old. So normally I'd take this apart right now to show you what's inside, but the prospect of permanently damaging my cock is frankly unthinkable, so I'm not going to risk it. That means that's it for today. If you do have any questions or comments about this, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a great April 1st. Bye-bye.
So that was the lockpicking lawyer talking about his mighty cock. And I think that's an appropriate segue out there to our next speaker here. This is someone, we've been talking to them for a while. I'm really excited. Hopefully we started a bit late because we're hackers and we don't know how technology works. But this is Luna, and she's going to be talking about alias branding and consent, the ABCs of sex work and digital security. Luna, are you there?
I unmuted everything.
Yes, we can hear you, and nice background there with the neon and everything.
Thank you. It was apropos considering the picture you posted on Twitter.
A cat ears. I hope Steve Rambram's not in chat, or we might have issue with the cat ears. That's a long story from Hackers on Planet Earth. I might tell at the end there.
Exciting.
So yeah, so I'm really excited about this. We've been trying to get you on this forever. Originally, this was supposed to be something for Exotica, and unfortunately, that did not happen at all this year. And hopefully, we'll bring you on board in the future, because just to let everyone know, the original plan was we were supposed to legit have a booth at Exotica, and Exotica was interested in us doing an entire talk about doing, like, whether you're someone who consumes pornography, is someone who works in the industry, whether it's server side, camera, in front of camera, behind camera, to like how to do better safe practices, and possibly a couple of other things. So we've been wanting to get Luna involved forever, so I'm going to stop being a horrible cis male and mansplain over this, and I want her to take it away and just do you.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's see if I can actually figure out how to share my screen, though.
Yeah, it's fine. Originally, that's what we were using Big Blue Button for, but it drove us crazy. So, worst comes to worst, I might have our handy tech support service that'll come in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing the option now. I found it earlier.
Ah, jeez. You You might have to like log in and log out at the room or something. Yeah, the option's not showing up for Jitsi. I hope we don't have the same problem as. Although she had to do a screen share thing, so last because we had someone who had issues with this before, but they were showing like code with screen sharing. So
Oh.
yeah.
Well, crap. Well, good thing I had extra time then.
Yes. I guess while you're trying to find that, and if you can't find it in a couple of minutes, I'll have Lord Circel come in and try to assist here. So once again, if you do like the content that you see and you really like cat ears and neon and giant afros that are barely contained by headphones and hackers doing weird things, you can follow us on you can like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitch, D Live, or YouTube. And we're currently testing Facebook out, and that's keyword test, hence why we announced that at the last minute, Thurman. It's hope you should get used to that. And that we're also trying out Chatterbait, which I'm actually really shocked of how many people are like sticking around to watch this stuff. Yeah. I think I announced before I had to check, but I think we had 13 people when I checked last time. Maybe it's dipped below that. No, it's 14 now. Holy crap. We got to do this more often. So who knew? We're DEFCON 201. We're in the wrong business. So or the right business.
I'm real confused.
Yes, and because we already tally a bunch of numbers on here, so that's in addition to the numbers we already see, which is good. And that we are trying to raise money for RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. I know that's a lot of heavy words, but basically we're trying to help people out there who are suffering through sexual abuse, because unfortunately humans suck. And we're gonna. We see it now. Just give me one moment. I'll end the spiel. We're trying to raise money for that. By the way, just let you know it goes. RAIN does a hotline, which at any point, if anyone needs that, and I'll probably post it in a bit in chat anyhow, you can call at any time during that hotline. It's a 24-hour hotline, as well as they set up not only, before COVID, there was still a lot of local centers and colleges, campuses, and stuff like that they do, but they also raise awareness and stuff now remotely with social distancing and do online stuff, so all the money goes for that. Even if we don't meet the 400 goal, like let's say it's still 150, I want to push that up still. All the money will still go there, and it's handled through Tiltify or not us. If you're on Twitch, you can scroll down and we have the donation link right there, and it'll still keep the live stream while you watch. Otherwise, I will post the link in this chat in Chatterbait. So again, try not to be a terrible mansplainer. This is Luna's awesome talk. Luna, take it away. You have the con.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this. And in true InfoSec form, I was putting together these slides earlier today. Got a little, took a half day at work so I could do this because I was so excited. And it was pretty apropos that I came after the previous talk going over, securing your nudes. So I don't have to do that. I can actually go into the non-technical aspect of how to keep your identity separate. Make sure I'm looking at my own notes here. So who am I? Who is this Luna person? Well, I'm a classically trained dancer from small town New Mexico. I do freelance burlesque. I used to be a digital marketing director for an RPG publishing company, and currently I'm in incident response, specializing in privacy. That said, I'm not a super technical person just yet, but I am a fan of managing multiple identities and operating within them. Why? Because I grew up in small town New Mexico. People don't like people like me there. Get a lot of hate, get a lot of bias, really hard to be yourself. When I worked with the RPG company, I managed 7+ social media accounts with 0 overlap between my personal accounts. That was a very hard line for me, and I managed it very successfully. I also, in between that time, from when I was in college to even now, I've developed and maintained numerous brands and identities across the media spectrum. I am, like I said, a burlesque dancer. I've also done modeling, but I'm also in the corporate world. I've been in various areas of the corporate world. But I also have a hustle, being an artist, and a writer, and a maker. I'm a crafter. And so I have all these different identities and channels and accounts to manage all the time. I'm even working with my partner on a website to use for social engineering engagements. And I've also been a target for defamation, harassment, and abuse for lifestyle choices. This is for dancing. This is for modeling. Not even outright sex work, but sex adjacent work. You can still be targeted. And one way to kind of mitigate that is having separate identities. So my goal here is to lay out the groundwork for living life through more than one persona, particularly online and particularly when it comes to social media. The previous talk went over a little bit. Actually, both the previous talks went over, dating apps and let's see, where you house your photos, if you're actually like selling nudes or selling porn. I'm going to focus on the social media, having the marketing background and being a little more familiar with those platforms. That's where I want to focus. So, we know hackers are known by handles and strippers are recognized by their stage names. It's all pretty obvious. People like us spend a good chunk of our lives in legal gray areas and promote a sexual image, which may make us a target for the defamation, even stalking or assault. But it's not just sex workers, like explicitly. There are other people, other professions where having an alias is a good idea. There are, professors who write erotica on Tumblr that cannot have it connected to their work whatsoever, or they'll lose their tenure ridiculously. But such is life at the moment. So sex is still among the biggest taboos, legally, socially. And what I'm doing here is making sure people understand how to think about keeping these identities separate and how to build a model of acceptable risk when it comes to promoting yourself online, posting things publicly, or not publicly, just when you find your website to secure it all. Let's see. And so most of what I'm going over here is pretty damn obvious. Like I said, I'm not super technical, but it does bear thinking about protecting yourself in this way, in this context, and just having it repeated at you. Not everybody can do it perfectly all the time, but the more you think about it and the more you talk about it with people or listen to talks, the more you'll absorb it, and it's easier to get into regular habit and practice. So quick disclaimer. At some point, it's probably going to sound like I'm going to tell people to, you better stay in the closet if you know it's good for you. Trust me, that's not what I want to be saying. It's just unfortunately how we have to operate safely right now. Ultimately, I want sex work and alternative lifestyles to be normalized. I want all of us to have the same rights and protections as the rest of the world. But in the meantime, we still got to find ways to express ourselves, but safely. So let's break it down. In our ABCs, we've got our first one is aliases, and these come in all shapes and sizes, alphanumerics, and special characters. They can be leet or abbreviated or puntastic, or something like candy, something really obvious, or something like George Orwell. Fun fact, I didn't know that until preparing the slide. George Orwell is a pen name, but it sounds very normal. So, and even company names, when there's a single person managing the entirety of a company's online presence, that can be considered an alias. Like I felt very representative of my company when I was managing their 7+ social media accounts. So, and that brings us to branding. Since the dawn of Instagram, marketing had a new phrase, and it was the personal brand. Everybody's got one, whether they know it or not. For example, my mom doesn't give two shits about social media, but she does have a personal brand. She's got a strong reputation among her students, her colleagues, and the way she's got her online classroom customized, it reflects that personal brand. And what it means, branding wise, is it's how an audience perceives you. And this can be done, just over time, accidental, you're not thinking about it, or it can be a deliberately curated image. Oftentimes, this is what companies do. Some companies do it really, really well. Some companies do it badly, despite one's best efforts. So here I'm going to talk about, or at least give a hint about how to craft a particular style of setting expectations for your audience that are in line with what you want to present. Which brings us to consent, which here means how to define your boundaries and only letting people know what you want them to know. And this can come in a variety of forms. It might seem natural to, not talk about BDSM and your kinks with your parents. Or maybe it's limiting out of the office connections with coworkers exclusively to LinkedIn. You're not going to invite, depending on who you are, you may not want to invite your coworkers to your burlesque show. And this is where things get really granular and where you really dig into the security and privacy considerations and different things you can do to express yourself within and around those personal boundaries. Oops. Oh no, it went back. There we go. So a social model of acceptable risk. Traditional InfoSec thing, risk management, incident response takes a lot of cues from this more basic concept. These are just some things to consider when you're building out your model. And I highly suggest, doing the list of pros and cons of, getting together, like how many Discord channels you're in, how many Facebook groups you're in, and how disparate they really are, or where they overlap, and what things would you want some people to know, or would you not mind them knowing, versus what would be a hard line? What don't you want those people to know about you? For example, you may not want your kink family knowing where you work. Posting something inappropriate on social media, trying to get your attention. If for some reason you're not, giving them enough attention, like there's really weird fallout that happens when you allow these overlaps to happen between these very different types of social circles. So I do have a list here, or several lists here. And I do want to point out that social media, no matter what your privacy settings are, there is an everyone else. It factors into, what pages you like, where you shop, if you click on the marketplace, there is an everyone else no matter what. So it's always worth taking into consideration when you're developing your risk model and, what you're willing to put out there. And again, there's consequences too, and they can be, by group. There's specific consequences for, unintended exposure to work. You can lose clients, you can lose jobs. Thankfully, that hasn't happened to me, but interesting. I could go on a tangent there. But with family and friends, if they find out something they don't like about you, they might pull their support. And decreases your support structure. And we all know we need that, especially this year. And again, it could be isolating, or maybe in the case of somebody you patronize, meaning, go eat at their restaurant, or by their art. If they find out something they don't like about you, then they might not serve you, or you might be banished from their location. And these are super negative, but it's really good to think about, the worst outcomes. Also, and it escalates from there. The rumors, the unwanted attention taking the form of sexual assault, or it could go the other direction, be outright rejection or violence. And nobody wants that. So, these are several more things we need to consider. And unfortunately, I had meant to have like a whole workflow info chart here, and I just did not have time. It's probably something I'll work on in the future in case I maybe get to do this talk again. But yeah, again, things to weigh the value of, weigh the importance of, how likely is it something will happen? How likely is it that, those worst consequences would come to fruition for a tiny little leak? And there's also how much you care about your privacy versus what's the severity of the consequence. And, it's a huge Venn diagram or chart. There's so many different ways to think about it. There's no way I could actually put it into one and feel satisfied with it. And this is something that's everybody's got to think about and come up with their own way to wrap their head around it. But it is never going to be easy. Operating multiple aliases takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, especially when you're doing it right. And if your rules are really strict, then it takes even more time and effort, and possibly even stress if it's just that organizing all of that isn't your thing. Even though it'd be highly, highly worth it to protect your data and protect your privacy. And then the incident responder in me has to be you need to know how to react when things go wrong. You have to have a backup plan. You have to have, your bug out bag in a social media sense. Do you blow your account away, or do you just do a mass block? Or do you go back and delete a whole bunch of posts? And obviously, that's not the most effective thing. Somebody has that somewhere. It still exists. Not everybody is super technical. And you've also got the, whatever or whoever your threat is, are they going to put in the amount of effort it would require to locate something that was, for all intents and purposes, scrubbed, even if it wasn't perfect? So again, just weighing it out, that privacy value versus how much time and effort you're willing to put into it versus how much time and effort an attacker or a malicious actor is going to put into it. So we'll start from the bottom up. With consent, this is just kind of a quick checklist. Again, not getting too technical, even though this is where technical things can happen. I learned a lot from the talk before mine regarding checking your media, what tools you can use to check your media, to scrub, redact, crop. Blurring is another option. I follow somebody on Twitter who uses a glitch program to just glitch out their face, and it looks really cool. And it's pretty effective at hiding their identity. You'd be hard pressed to associate that with somebody else, say on Facebook or with an image search. Do often check your privacy and security settings. They're changing all the time. They don't always tell us. They say they do. Can't trust it. I don't trust anything. Also, review your likes, follows, linked accounts, because that can reveal a lot about you. And if you're operating in multiple personas and multiple accounts, multiple locations, if you've got a similar theme of likes, that may spark somebody's mind of, oh, I'm seeing a pattern. This person is kind of around this area. They like these things. Maybe they're the same. It can escalate from there if they're crushing on you and then they find out more. Let's see. And don't be afraid to block. Block button is your friend. So I've been told often. So this goes into if you're setting up a new account, And there are people that have harassed you before. Just block them before they even know about it. So there's no chance that they can act or harass you further on this new identity if they were to notice. And it might be worth thinking about having a rules of behavior, just in case there is, by some chance, an overlap. It's like, there is a lot of overlap in my friends group and personally, with the kink community, with the polyamory community, and with hacker community, and with burlesque. Like, that's a huge Venn diagram of very big middle section. So there are times where I might want to invite somebody on a certain platform to come to one of my burlesque shows. But I only do that under the very strong and strict condition that they don't share anything. Like, they don't allude to, the connection, like my being my burlesque persona versus my being my IRL persona. I draw that hard line. And to reiterate, it's very much about those boundaries. And then there's branding, which is the really fun part if you're graphically oriented or style oriented, like to write, like to draw, like, putting together color palettes. This is really fun to me, and maybe why I was in marketing for many years. But what's important to think about here when you're coming up with a new alias is part of, like, excuse me, only giving out what you want to know and defining the purpose of that, whether, the purpose, excuse me, I'm going to clear my throat.
I'm pretty sure someone's into that, so you can go right ahead. We're not bothered. So I guess we're going to give a minute. I just want to quickly shout out, thank you for IamSin for following us on DLive. As soon as our speaker is done with their talk, if you're on DLive, please stay tuned because there's going to be a big lemon drop. Luna, are you still there?
I'm here, feeling better.
Yay. And thank you.
Feeling smoother.
Cringy as fug, I'll pronounce it, for following us on DLive. But anyway, continue. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So where was I? Okay, defining the purpose of your identity, your new account, your, whatever, the image you want to promote with people. And it's good to think about, if you're someone like me, a burlesque performer, yes, I do want to sell myself. I want to sell my image. I want people to want to see me in person. That can make it a little challenging to do that separation of accounts. However, that's part of my risk model. I've got to include my face, my body, my image. Or is your purpose just to meet people and have friends or have conversations? Maybe, pictures of yourself aren't important, but you still want to be known by a certain style or by the content you post. Is your purpose to build followers? It goes on and on and on and on. And, there's a reason marketing is a degree offering. So I won't go too much further there, but there are things to think about design-wise and how you present yourself. Whether you have just one alternate identity or you have multiple, they should all be distinct, but they should all be true. Sorry, that went off on a tangent. So things you want to consider are what kind of name you have, the content you post, how you engage with both other people, and how you respond to people who engage with you. And again, that will set some expectations, build those relationships in whatever you want, because you've defined that purpose. And of course, visual themes, because they're fun. Don't forget, you can also manipulate your advertising. So it can present a few problems if, say, the pages you like and the products you like and share on one account kind of starts showing up on your other account, and then you accidentally hit the button on your on the Facebook where your parents see you, and they're seeing that you liked this really raunchy lingerie. That can be embarrassing. There's probably not a whole lot of fallout for something like that, but it can get a little worse from there. And so my advice is to really be mindful of what pages you like, what products you like when you're using a particular account. And then it's kind of cool because the algorithm starts working in your favor, and you can increase your engagement in a way that supports your purpose and the message and the image you want to present. So lots of things to think about there. And then we'll move on to aliases. This is up to personal taste. I do recommend choosing one that aligns with your purpose. And like I said before, hackers, it's okay for us to go with LEET and put alphanumerics in there and special characters. But if you want something, maybe on Tumblr, or, put a pen name together that's very classy, kind of erotica. Maybe you don't want a pun for a name, but you want something that sounds like a real human might have written it. Up to personal taste, and as long as it aligns with your purpose. Other than that, don't cross those social streams, ever. Like I said, there may be some kind of super, super, super special situations where you want to, but really resist that urge. It can quickly snowball. It can blow out of proportion. If you misplaced your trust in one person, which can happen. I mean, we're all human. We're all vulnerable to, emotions or guile or somebody else's social engineering attempts. We're all vulnerable. So just try to avoid it at all costs. And then tools, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into this. But as far as like how to make it a little easier to operate these multiple accounts, these multiple channels, you want to think about, maybe, especially if, if you're doing sex adjacent work and you want to make money at it and you want to build your audience and you got to keep up that regular engagement, which is so crucial to that, then maybe consider diving into a social media management software. There's tons out there. There's tons that are free, that they're not the best or easiest to use, but they perform their job. Or if it turns out you're making a whole lot more money than I do being a dancer, then it might be worth it to pay for it, and then you can schedule things in advance. So it's really easier to separate what you're posting to which account. And going a little step further than that, depending on how serious you want to get with this separation, you can set up different user accounts on your devices, or even have different devices. I know the previous speaker mentioned having a burner phone. If I thought it was worth it, if I thought I wouldn't lose one or both of them because of that, I totally would. It seems it would simplify some other things, but there's a risk in losing that device and then losing that part of identity, or maybe risking compromise. Somebody hijacks your account, whatever. So I know that was a lot and it was kind of rambly. But last couple of things I want to mention is, practice those ABCs, because practice is sexy. Always think before you post, as the previous speaker said, what's behind you, what's in the metadata, who you're with, even. We have the rule at DEFCON, don't take pictures of other people without their consent. This should extend to every area of life, really, and especially if you're operating multiple social media personas or multiple online personas. Define those boundaries, keep those boundaries. You also want to check in on the situation, check those privacy settings, check those security settings, make sure you don't have like an old open account that you're not using anymore that may have gotten taken over. Just make sure you're getting the big picture somewhat regularly. And going back to defining boundaries and your risk model, assess if those values and if those, checks and balances, not checks and balances, if that something still apply to you. All those risk and rewards and consequences, yada yada. It's good to reassess those. But don't make any changes without really, really thinking deliberately and critically. Emotions can really get in the way there. For example, like blowing away an account because somebody pissed you off, and then you kind of regret it. You lose a bunch of your data, or a bunch of your images that you wanted, or sacrifice a whole bunch of followers. So, on that really interesting segue, thank you so much, DC201, for having me on here.
Woohoo.
And I'd also like to give a shout out to DCZia, who welcomed me into the InfoSec family when I was still just a hobbyist, and I learned a lot through them. Went to my first DEFCON for them, and got to meet a whole bunch of new people and connected with others on Twitter, which is how I, connected to 201. And also my lovely partners, Syntax, who sent in a lovely donation to Rain earlier, and XL Naga. They've put up with me a lot in my anxious ball of Luna in preparing this talk. So thank you. And that's it.
Awesome, Luna. Thank you so much for your talk there. If you don't mind, because I don't know if any of our next speakers are actually in the Jitsi chat or not, but we probably have a little bit of time to take a couple of questions, although I want to do some updates. So as Luna properly mentioned, we are raising money for the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. I know that's a lot of heavy words, but basically we're trying to combat against the fact that the human brain has not had a patch update in a couple 100,000 years, and thus we have terrible concepts, and one of those is sexual abuse, and unfortunately it still goes on in society among all different people of different classes, races, and backgrounds. And so we're trying to just contribute to that, and we're trying to reach a $400 goal. Right now we have 150, which is amazing, and Luna's partner Syntax still has the highest donation. If you want to knock them off the leaderboard and send in like $51 just to spite, you can do that, and then we have a bidding war. But even if we somehow don't reach the $400 goal, just a reminder that all money is handled through Tiltify, and everything will go towards the organization, which sets things up like crisis hotlines and personal outreach and stuff. I also want to do a quick funny. Yes, thank you. I was watching you do that again, so I could just go toasty. But yeah, and I also want to do so here's the fun real quick before we get into Q&A. The good news is that at its height, we had 20 people watching the Chatterbait. The bad news is I have to email the Chatterbait because, unfortunately, ironically enough, we got banned from it. So of all the platforms we've streamed on, the website where you stream boobs, we got banned from. Although I feel like, yes, although this kind of ties back into things of like the OnlyFans and stuff where like you can't say, I guess, certain things on air or whatever, and they somehow end up being more hostile than Facebook, well, hostile in their own way compared to like Facebook and Instagram and stuff. So I don't know if Andre and the people at Inferno in there, but I do want to take, because we ran late, a couple of minutes. If anyone has any questions in chat, please let us know. I guess I'm trying to think if I should have a question or a statement. I do want to mention that you were talking about how, Luna, about having like different profiles on your device. One of the things that I was informing Circel about is how, for best example, this is Firefox. If you type in about :profiles, that you can actually set up different profiles for your Firefox. You can have one profile that's just for browsing, one profile just for search, and you can break things down. Also, Firefox has a system called containers, and they have a particular thing called Containerize, which in the latest version's built in, but you can also get it as an extension and literally block off different websites. So, and real quick, for people on DLive, we're about to drop a crap ton of lemons now. So if you want to donate lemons, and thank you for all the follows. Do you have a question for Luna or whatever? I would ask, is there an example that you can give us with any detail about let me just drop these lemons real quick. About, here we go, 30 seconds to distribute, about were like one of these sort of techniques. And thank you, Kicking Saturday, for following us. That sort of like, you're glad that you knew that you did this technique, or otherwise you would have been in deep trouble.
I think I got lost halfway through that question.
Sorry, I did
again?
too, because so much is happening right now in good and bad ways, but mostly good ways. It sucks because I think a lot of people in the chat room wanted to see your face again, and like right before this happened, man. But is there any sort of like base privacy technique that you are actually like, despite how stupid simple it sounds, you were really happy that you did it? Otherwise, it would have like really bit you or your friend in the butt. Like, you don't have to go in specifics, but
I can't say, like, I don't know. I don't think anything comes up to mind. One time when I was getting harassed, it was happening on Facebook. It was happening with my personal phone number, and then it was happening on, other pages which I didn't belong to anymore. And I was hearing about it from other people, and it was that block button being my friend, honestly. And it was the proactive blocks going to my other social media accounts and finding that person and then blocking them, so they couldn't compromise, my reputation anywhere else.
That's always good to know. So because I'm usually the one at DEFCON 201 that likes stirring up the pot, I don't know if you're probably familiar with this situation, but I have to ask, even if it's just pure laughter or pure crying, what was your take on the whole, everyone's going to groan when I say this, Dark Sim 905 constantly spawning new profiles to stalk people thing?
It's
lemons.
It's so weird. And it's hard to plan around that. It gets around that proactive blocking, for sure. And I'm not sure there's any other real solution other than retreat. Because even if you end up, maybe you feel a little more too compromised or too exposed, then you feel like you want to create a whole new identity again and build up those connections again. It just means that that person is still in that circle and can easily find you again, no matter what you do. So it's a no-win, and it's kind of like a what the hell? Why does somebody care that much? And just do the best you can. And in that situation, it's hard to be proactive. You just got to react quickly, efficiently, deliberately.
Yes, it's these very, trust me, as someone who's had to deal with a lot with Tool, I thought, like, I'm going to air this out, I thought that the worst of his problems was not hearing back from him for months at a time, and that's one of the reasons I actually made a lockpicking kit, because originally it was called the FU Dark Sim kit for when he was not prepared for Tool stuff. So it's just sad to know when someone is bad and then you find out that they're worse. If you want more details, I could talk about that probably at the December DEFCON 201 meeting. Also, I just want to thank Cringy as Fug for sending lemons, and thank you for, and I have to look this up real quick, and Lithochasm for donating $25 for Rain. I also have a theory about why we actually might have got, which still makes me laugh, banned from, because we got a post once suspended at TikTok the day it came out. And thank you, Kick Saturday, for sending lemons. And now it's like we get banned for not showing boobies, I guess.
I have a theory as to why. Actually,
I mean, I could.
Okay.
I think Chatterbait doesn't like you running fundraisers on it.
That, and I also thought that at one point I typed out the full name to Rain, and in the same way OnlyFans, like for example on OnlyFans you can't mention the word blood, Yeah, it's stuff like that. Oh, hi, we're gonna get to this in a moment here while people keep sending lemons here. So if anyone doesn't have any other questions in chat, I guess I'll end it with Lua. What is the future stuff that you are doing right now in any of the many different pots you have your hands in, and how people, and remind people again how people can reach out to you if they want to learn more hacker stuff.
So I'm always available at Luna Asylum Dancer, and that is Luna Asylum as in, a crazy moon person who dances. And not working on anything right now, unfortunately. It's just my day job, and maybe getting around to performing again someday. In the meantime, I can maybe come up with some more costumes and dances.
That'd be very cool. And unfortunately, especially if Chatterbait acts the way it is, we probably can't air them on stream. But hopefully we'll have everyone will actually learn how to properly wear a mask, and COVID will be over, and then we can actually have Exotica, and we can all hang out for 3 days and do crazy hacker stuff at a porn convention. But just thank you finally, Lua, for coming on and being awesome with your giant cat ears. And you can stick around because in a moment we are going to get into, unfortunately, I think, unfortunately, my friend, although I will bring up this news, Andre Shakti, longtime friend of mine, is probably busy. Same thing with the Inferno people. So we're probably going to jump right into the Sesta Fosta stuff. If anyone has any questions in chat, let them know in a moment. I do want to shout out from Andre Shakti a bit of news that recently happened in the past couple of days, where there is a shop called Shop Enby, ShopNeby, that who is being sued by, and I'm trying to remember which company it is. It's like a big one, Wildflower Sex, because they have a toy that's called NB, and if I remember correctly, NB is like a type of, like, I think it's like a gender status or whatever.
It stands for non-binary.
Yeah, it's like another way of saying that. Yeah, and so basically this company, the sex toy company, has copyrighted an entire gender class. So just to note how bad the rabbit hole gets, it's like, it's whether it's sex toys or cartoon mice with ears or code, everyone's kind of crazy everywhere. Someone said mass at convention. So we are going to get into the Sesta Fossa stuff. I do want to do a transition just so that we can talk about all that stuff. So as we set up for that, I think the lockpicking lawyer might have a new update on some new other lock system that he might have. Let's go take a look.
This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and about a year ago I showed you my absolute favorite cylinder, this well-used, albeit somewhat short cock. Now if you'd like to see more of my cock, I'll leave a link to that year-old video in the description below. But today is all about the favorite of Mrs. Lockpicking Lawyer, and while she does like my cock, it is not her favorite. Her favorite is one that she actually had even before I knew her, though it never got any use until after we met. At least that's what she tells me. If you saw the title to this video, then you know that it is, of course, her beaver. Now, I have been avidly interested in beavers since I was a teenager, but over the years, no two beavers that I've ever seen have been exactly alike. So, let's take a closer look at my wife's beaver. The most obvious feature is the large opening in the center, but if we take a closer look, we'll see something that a lot of guys miss. There's a small hood-shaped feature at the 12 o'clock position. If you're going to manipulate a beaver, you're going to have to give that area special attention. Another notable property is the wrinkled surface all around the main opening. Not all beavers have that. In fact, I have another beaver that I keep on the side. My wife doesn't know about this one, but let's take a look at it. You'll see that this one is perfectly smooth on the outside. That's actually pretty common on the newer beavers. So let's hide this one away and then see what it takes to get into my wife's. Now from experience, I can tell you that a generous squirt of lube will make this process go much easier. So let's do that now. And we're going to work that in to get it very slick on the inside. Okay, now that it's well lubricated, I'm going to take out my tool. Now it looks a little bit on the big side. In fact, when my wife first saw it, she didn't think it would fit. But after that squirt of lube we gave it earlier, it should slip right in. But before I show you that, a word about technique. I'm going to be using a firm thrusting motion together with a small twist. Not everyone does it that way, but I find that technique very effective. Okay, let's get started. So, as you can see, it is disappointingly fast and easy to get into my wife's beaver. In any case, that's all I have for you today. If you do have any questions or comments about this, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe and have a great April 1st.
Okay, and we are back. Let's just put on the window capture and ta-da! So, unfortunately, and as the instant rewards are kicking in, we I don't think we're going to unfortunately be doing the virtualization segment. I'm pretty sure we're going to visit this topic again. So when we do, and there's the incent reward there. Oh, I should probably turn on the camera. I am an old man. There we go. Hi, it's me out here. I'm still trying to get over the fact that we got banned from the booby site. Anyhow, that's one of those things. Yeah. No, we have theories of what happened, but yeah. So where was I going with this? So we're gonna, I think, get right into, because we already have the awesome Ellie here, at least to talk. Because if you follow us at DEFCON 201, you should probably know by now. Not only are we a part of the Electronic Frontier Alliance as a subsection of the EFF, and thank you for all the lemons being sent. Holy crap, D-Live is really coming out full force right now. We're really angry about Sesta Fosta, which then got added on to by an act called Earn It. And kind of my summary of it is that if you really hate internet censorship, you should really hate this, because not only is this silencing a section of the internet and how it's weird, vague ways of how to do censorship, it's also affecting many different online communities that have nothing to do with sex work. Never mind just censoring sex work itself is horrible, right, Chatterbait? But that, oh my God, if, they often, as I said before, policymakers often target sex workers and sex in general, because everyone knows, particularly in America, that we're very Puritan about things. So they'll be like, hey, how do we make sure everyone has the mark of the beast? I know, we'll mention boobies. And then if everyone accepts that, then they'll put it in everything else. And for example, real quick, I remember so many people on YouTube particularly, and please follow us here on YouTube, didn't really care much about Sesta Fosta, because it's like, it's sex workers. It's like, I'm a variety streamer. And then they upgraded Copa with the same exact wording as Sesta Fosta. And then all of a sudden they cared, because that's something that directly affects YouTube. So I guess since we have her in here, and hopefully there'll be others joining in, I believe Ellie is here. Ellie, are you on the stream? Can we hear you? Hi. Is your mic activated, or are you going to do text chat? What's going on?
No, that's just me indicating.
That's fine.
I'm here with the present hand raise. Yeah. Hi there.
There we go. Big screen now. So this is going to be odd, because so here's the problem is that I'm going to ask you a question, and then you can keep going on. And Circe, if you want, you can switch seats. I really have to take a leak. It's not that I don't care, but I'm going to explode soon. And we're not on Chatterbait, so unfortunately no one here is here to see me explode and yellow lemons. So my question is I believe our group first heard about you for Hope, and thank you for being in this chat. Could you tell a bit of background, about yourself, and sort of your, like, whatever internet stuff, censorship stuff you want to talk about, Sesta Fosta, Earn It, or just policies that's going on? The floor is yours and everyone else for sex workers, because we want to hear everyone with their voice, whether you're a sex worker or an ally. So I'll be right back.
I'm an artist, and I'm also a sex worker, and I think that puts me in a unique position to speak about the impact of Fosta Sesta, because it's something that has had a significant effect on how sex workers are able to advertise and promote themselves on mainstream social media platforms, how they're able to access community in terms of sharing blacklists, guiding people who are new to the industry, of whom there are many in the post, COVID pandemic era. A lot of people who are turning to online sex work. All of those resources are much harder to come by now as a direct result of Fosta Sesta shutting down a lot of those avenues for peer support, and shutting down those avenues also for reaching clients and doing proper screening of clients to ensure that the people who you are, providing services to are actually safe. So what the impact on the sex industry has been is that there are more incidences of sex workers engaging in, riskier behaviors, because they don't have access to those digital harm reduction tools that were previously available. Now, on the artistic side of things, you also see a lot of artists who are working with themes related to sexuality, related to the body, being censored on those same platforms. And if I'm going to get specific, I'm thinking about Instagram, I'm thinking about Facebook, and a lot of these platforms were already not particularly friendly to sex workers. And I'm thinking specifically of Facebook's real name policy, which also has an impact on people who are trans, people, who go by a different name for reasons of safety. Maybe they're survivors of abuse. For activists who also, have safety concerns at times. So many of the ways in which like sex workers seem to be uniquely targeted, actually this is of concern to a more general population as well. And it's something that really impacts not just how sex workers can make a living and keep themselves safe, but also like how artists can express themselves like freely. And personally, I'm someone, I've been engaged in like various forms of sex work, some of which has taken place, online, some of which not. I actually see this impacting me probably more deeply as an artist in terms of what images I'm able to share on my Instagram. Yeah, and there's just a myriad of concerns that have been rightfully raised about FOSTA SESTA. And I think the fact that you have so many organizations like such as the ACLU, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, all these different groups, advocacy groups that are actually really concerned about the impact on digital civil liberties at large, not just looking at sex workers. I think that really indicates that the legislation is deeply flawed, that there really wasn't like due diligence done, and that this narrative that it was actually going to create a safer internet or reduce trafficking was like largely overblown and not based on anything factual. So like really like I hope that the sex worker community is listened to now that it's been a couple of years, and like really many of the ramifications that that we were warned about with FOSTA SESTA like have actually come true, that legislators will actually start to listen.
Awesome about that. I was trying to hear chunks about that. You said that way more eloquently than I ever could. I just want to quickly address something in chat before we continue to have the dialogue. Hi, everyone out there who's watching on DLive, Twitch, YouTube. For trying out Facebook, and we were on Chatterbait. We are DEFCON 201. We are a computer hacker group that is based out in Jersey City, New Jersey. We meet third Friday of every month, hence today on November 20th. We're also raising funds for the RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, because we are trying to assist people. We're trying to assist the organization to help people who have dealt with sexual abuse, which is, I feel like, is basically, unfortunately, everyone, because everything is bad. And if you think it's bad in 2020, it's, as they say in Silent Hill 2, for us, it's always like this. But it doesn't have to be that way. So that's why, if you can donate, and I'm going to post the link here in a second. If you're also on Twitch, you can scroll down, and we have a little widget that's built in that you can donate without being there. And it's okay if you only donate $1, $3, $5. Every little bit counts. So, and we very much appreciate it. And we do get notifications. It's kind of crazy because, by the way, if I keep looking down at my phone, it's because I'm communicating with other friends of mine who are burlesque dancers and sex workers and strippers and stuff, because it's Friday night. A lot of them are working, but a bunch of them are trying to come out. To just do on the flip coin perspective here. So I'm someone who so far, despite everyone wanting me to, for some reason, have not engaged in a form of sex work. And all the parameters, like particularly on Facebook, like, what does it feel like I get banned from Facebook every 2 days? Yeah. Like I've literally had it where I've literally got banned on every single thing on Facebook for like months at a time. Literally, I think one time I got banned because there was a woman who had water balloons in her shirt as like boobs, and she had a shirt underneath that was clearly a shirt. It wasn't like skin colored or anything. And just the idea of a boob shape, they're like, nope, we can't have this on here now. All these Nazi Trump ads we're going to put right there, and you can't unsee them. So that's a way, for example, that this sort of stuff sort of affects us. I was just curious. I don't know if we lost you there. Are you still out there? Okay, just make it because it's connection. Could you possibly do you want to kind of break down for everyone? You may have already said this. I may have missed about to the best of your ability, like we always keep hearing SESTA, FOSTA, and Earn It. Can you kind of give a general of like what each of these things like kind of are? Like it doesn't have to be super technical, but like what each one adds to the bad threesome pile of censorship for everybody.
Yeah, sure. So in 2018 is when FOSTA SESTA was passed, and it stands specifically for the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, and allow states and victims to fight online sex trafficking act. So basically, what it meant in practice is that if you run a website like Craigslist, for example, and there are advertisements for sexual services on your website, you're actually held liable for facilitating the sale of sex. So this is like an amendment to Section 230 that previously meant that you would be immune as the provider of the platform for whatever content your users are posting, right? And this was a specific bill where the reason it was pushed is because the argument was that this would then allow us to fight sex trafficking and basically non-consensual trafficking of people for the purpose of selling them for various sexual services against their will. In practice, what this meant was not that just content related to trafficking supposedly was taken down. What it meant is many platforms, including Craigslist, back pages, Reddit escort pages, all of these pages basically just shut down en masse because it proved to basically be impossible to delineate between what people could be held liable for. And in the aftermath of that, what it also meant is that many communities in which sex workers were organizing amongst each other, sharing crucial information about how to conduct yourself in a safe manner, how to screen for clients, how to share information about clients who were unsafe or unreliable, all of the types of digital harm reduction practices that sex workers need to engage in to prevent themselves from being stalked or doxxed or otherwise harassed on the internet. All these practices that people were writing about and sharing about in forums, those types of communities were also shut down, right? And just beyond that, it just made the internet a much less sexy place because it also meant that the types of content that audiences that maybe weren't even involved with sex work, the type of content that people appreciated, if it was of a sexual nature and a platform feared that they could then be potentially considered to be in violation of FOSTA SESTA, like then they would also shut the pages down. So in the last couple of years, you've seen many platforms, including Instagram, crack down pretty heavily on users, and you have all kinds of instances of this being applied pretty indiscriminately. So as an artist and as someone who worked for many years as a nude model, I have a pretty large network of friends who are photographers and who are doing like artistic nude photography. And of course, it's not a human being that's going around putting down posts or anything like that. If you censor yourself, censor nipples, censor like different, aspects of the body, like often you just get flagged by the algorithm. And as a result, you might lose access to your account. It's one thing if you're posting content essentially for fun. It's another thing if it's your livelihood, and especially during this particular time when there are so many sex workers who are turning to the internet because of COVID, who are trying to create a client base for themselves online. Like it's actually a huge threat to their ability to continue to survive, especially because a lot of sex workers and artists as well live in a pretty like financially precarious state, right? So Earn It is kind of Earn It is like a worse version of Pasta Sesta. I mean,
Well, it's primarily drafted by Lindsey Graham,
he
so of course it has to be worse.
yeah. So I mean, like, essentially, it's again, pushed forth under this guise of, we're protecting children, we're preventing them from being, sex trafficked. But there's a reason why there's so many organizations that are very concerned about the specificity of the legislation, because it's, it potentially has huge censorship impact, huge chilling effects. I mean, Human Rights Watch, ACLU, Electronic Frontier Foundation, all these organizations are deeply concerned that Earn It would not just be about, saving the children, that it would in essence give law enforcement the ability to end, end-to-end encryption, and basically allow legislators, not, by any means experts on how the internet works, but like basically allow legislators to determine to what extent a internet platform is liable if there's a case of like child endangerment, or child sex trafficking. So the language is so vague, and it puts the onus then again on the platforms. And as we know, like, these are multinational corporations. They're going to play it safe. They're much more likely to engage in censorship and figure out a way to like parse between, my post versus the post of someone who's like trafficking someone, right? So, and it's very questionable as to whether or not it's even going to achieve the stated intention of actually making the internet safer, because there are many who argue that actually, it doesn't mean you're going to prevent trafficking. What it means is you drive trafficking even more underground and make it even harder to trace and to track. So particularly at this time when there's already such a concern about surveillance and type of surveillance that have been taken against protesters during Black Lives Matters and various other social protest movements that have happened over the past 2 months, I think that this is much bigger than what the impact is on on sex workers, because the same technologies that are being used against sex workers are basically being used against everyone.
Wow, just because of how busy everyone is, like I believe you might be the only person tonight, but one, I'd love to have the conversation with you until you get tired of us. And two is that they're just saying things way better than my brain can combobulate it. I do want to address in chat that someone mentioned, because I do want to make a point where they wrote, always follow government laws, not social media laws, but now they have more power, so it's up to you really. There's the two-part issue of that one. And there we go with that post there. So ta-da. And let me just be like da. So blah blah blah. This will actually allow me to put in the thing right here. Is that two things about that particular point. One is that we're so American centric, and even with a lot of companies still having a lot of their CEOs and base in America, a lot of these are global organizations. So, for example, there's a lot of companies who have huge headways in the United States and China, but don't really have in the EU, because the EU has completely different internet law systems. So, one, which government laws, and two is that, just put in perspective, I'm a mixed racial person, and literally 80 years ago, I was illegal. Like, the pairing of my parents was like completely illegal. And my mom remembered when it became legal. So we often see these laws changing over time, and that's why we often talk about, fighting for your rights and stuff, because any of these everyone sees a lot of people who are in charge or want to be in charge, they literally see everything as a privilege. So that means they feel like they can add and revoke anything that they want. And so as a public, as a democratic public, we need to let our voices to be known about that. I just wanted to throw that bit out there. I also do want to make a point, and then I'll try to segue to something that this is funny enough that, yep, thank you, Cringy. This is shockingly enough one of the few things in the U.S. government that's bipartisan. I just want to remind that as much as I like the man, Bernie Sanders voted yes for all of this. Like, there was literally 2 senators, and the only one that I can remember because he's on my phone right now is I just screwed that one up. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden, who unfortunately got really busy because I actually invited him to be on this stream, is one of two, if I remember. There might be three, but I know there's two who voted against it, and everyone else said yes. So this really shows how much this sort of stuff, this sort of like thinking of just like, it's like a gag reflex when it comes to sex work, ironically enough, in order to just get the most asinine laws passed. And, you know, it's like, I thought we'd be over this stuff in the 90s with the V-chip, and now we're having weirder, worse versions of the V-chip. Yep, the rules are the same with both parties. I completely agree with that. So trying to get into this. So you mentioned, again, because I have that experience where you as an artist have been impacted by this. Could you do you have an experience where you were trying to do something artistic and this sort of online platform censorship has targeted one of you or your friends' artistic works?
Yeah, I mean, I think just with even my personal account, it's been extremely problematic, because I do post images of myself that are nude but censored, you know, so it's not actually showing full nudity on Instagram, but nonetheless, I can get my images flagged. More recently, I did an interactive performance where a group of sex workers from 5 different time zones created a data dungeon and we advertised this experience on Instagram. And although we are careful about the types of images that we were posting, again, we're getting flagged like continuously and basically being told at a certain point, if you have another violation, you're going to get your account deleted.
Question, because there's been so many
it,
awesome things. Was that Veil Machine, or am I thinking of something different?
I was actually in the Veil Machine eviction show, which directly addresses the impact of FOSTA SESTA, and I think, you know, conceptually is a the way that that experience was curated and framed really brought home the point, because it was a 12-hour show. They had sex workers of all different identities sharing their work, and after that period of time, the website, you know, self-destructed, essentially erasing, you know, this beautiful archive of work and replicating really what Fosta and Sesta has done to so many different platforms, like, you know, Tumblr, which I used to use, you know, obsessively and consider to be like a form of, like, you know, finding cool like independent porn, finding like great information about sexuality, like written from really relatable perspectives. Like so many of those blogs, so many of those users have just been, you know, annihilated by this legislation. So Veil Machine did an amazing job of that. And I created a project with a group of friends who are actually based in Europe, called Play For Us Now. And this was a attempt to kind of turn the tables, actually, because sex workers are often, you know, so often the victim of these policies. We wanted to create a situation where sex workers would actually be the ones in charge. So, you know, we were the dominatrixes in this data dungeon. Users gave us their information by interacting with our website, playforusnow.com. And we used the data we collected, some of which were on sexual preferences, some of which were, you know, security questions. We used this to humiliate and sexually dominate people in a Zoom-based performance, obviously using the Zoom platform for something for which it is not intended.
We're familiar with that. Some of us,
it
unfortunately, use Emacs.
I mean, it was fun because, you know, again, like we're often the ones who don't have control over our internet presence, who often feel like our entire digital existence is, you know, it can be erased at the whim of some tech overlord. So to reposition ourselves as, you know, the ones who are actually in charge of a system and in charge of people's, you know, secrets and personal information, I think it was like an interesting thought experiment. But yeah, one that, you know, in the process of advertising that, we definitely received a lot of censorship and pushback from Instagram, despite trying to comply by their stated policies.
I will mention, though, because I was around for Veil Machine, and what I absolutely loved, for those who weren't there, was at the end of it, which was a big surprise, where before it was permanently erased. That there was a surprise Twitch account, and so everyone was essentially like naked and doing stuff long enough on Twitch that by the time their bots would realize it, it would be too late. And we, as soon as we saw that, we actually reshared that like instantly. Like the 5 seconds it was up, it was like, oh, there's a Twitch, and we're like, that, and all these hackers are like, oh, this is great. This is a great FU to everybody. So I'm glad that there are art projects and like digital protests. I know in the summer the International Whores Day happened completely digitally. The question I want to bring up, because I've had experience with this, is do you want to bring up? Okay, who should describe what shadow banning is? Speaking of Instagram, and do we have? Because I've had experience with it. Do you have had any experiences with that, or?
I don't know if I'm shadow banned. I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if I were, but I also don't rely on Instagram to source clients for sex work. So I definitely feel like less impacted by that. Um, but shadow banning is essentially the practice of a algorithm figuring out that you are a sex worker or you are, something else, which the platform does not approve of. And essentially, people can no longer follow your account so easily. Like if they search for your name, you might not come up as the first result, even though you are the most obvious result for what they're searching for. Your posts might not appear to your followers. So it's not an outright account deletion, but for many people, who do rely on organic methods of gaining followers, like this completely shuts down any attempt to market on a social platform like that.
Yeah, and
Sex workers.
yes, and it's also, again, because these are algorithms. There's also a lot of people who have nothing to do with sex work that get flagged for this all the time. I do want to mention that on Instagram in particular, because we actually occasionally post like how different Instagram algorithms work. So if you think someone is shadow banned, where if they normally get like a ton of like likes and now it's just like 2 every new post, if you there's like a little like follow, like it's like a bookmark button, and then comment on it, and then if you want to go the extra mile, reshare it on your story feed. That drags the shadow banning out. They've recently updated the app, but there's don't so far have anything really around that. I also want to point out, because I completely forgot to bring this up back when our 2 amazing speakers, when Luna and Ali were talking about being like incognito with stuff. A big tip about this goes for, like, let's say you see someone sexy online and they have a Cash App or a Venmo or whatever, or especially a PayPal, and you want to send them money. And this is even good OPSEC for, let's say you're trying to send I don't know, I'm pretty sure SD cards will be illegal one day or something like that, because it's 2020, who knows how it's going. Make sure that when you put the comment of why you're sending it, that it's vague and has nothing to do with. So it's like, if you're sending it someone for like boobies, send it's like, thank you for your time, or like, I paid for I paid for your new sweater or something. Don't write, I saw Vijay in the thing, because that will flag on their systems. And because we're dealing with US fiat money, that's a big thing in the banking world, unfortunately, which is why we also see sex workers not being able to be insured and hold banking stuff, although they held Donald Trump's accounts and Clinton's accounts. So whatever. So someone wrote, it's called the adult entertainment industry. Technically, if everyone else goes below, they're harassing you or degrading you. Well, there's people who pay for that. There's people who like that. I mean, eventually the P-tapes will get out eventually. Trying to think of where to go here, because you cover things so well. Oh boy. Does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions in chat, do any of you have?
I do have a question.
Warren, because
Yeah.
Warren did initially vote for Sesta Fosta, but now is one of the co-sponsors of a bill to do a study on the impact of Fosta Sesta. So, there is a contingent of lawmakers who realize that maybe that was the wrong call, and, are trying to address the impact of the legislation. So, there is, I just want to signal that there is hope, and that I do think that attempts to educate policymakers are not futile, actually.
Yes, and that's a big thing we look out for, because it's very much the hacker way of like, it's not if you make a mistake, it's if you learn from your mistake. And we have so many people in policies and corporations who not only do they not learn from their mistakes, but as we say in the programming world, they literally think bugs are features. Saracel had a question, and then someone in chat had one, then I have a new one. And thank you for being here for this, by the way. This has been a real honor and a treat. Saracel,
Yeah.
go right here.
So, the question I had is, how often is it that, like, rather, how should I put this? How many legal advocates are there for sex workers out there? Like, is that a field that's being explored, and are, like, I mean, mostly towards individuals, not so much organizations and companies who are in the adult entertainment business, but specifically focusing on, people starting out and doing their own thing?
I honestly don't know. I'm not a huge expert on that. I know that there are lots of folks who are collaborating with sex workers, specifically on issues related to defending their rights on the internet, and preventing violence being done to sex workers, addressing issues related to stalking, online harassment, that kind of thing. Hacking Hustling is, obviously a great resource for that. Decoding Stigma is also a new interdisciplinary group, really a coalition of people, who do include some lawyers, technologists, artists, activists, all kinds of cool folks, who are working at, the merger of law and technology and sex. I actually just attended a workshop a couple hours ago with them on trademark transparency, and how that can uncover really sketchy surveillance practices. So there are groups out there who are doing great advocacy work. But I think in terms of, like, what type of legal aid sex workers really need, like, it runs the gamut, right? Like, because what are we talking about? Are we talking about, content that some independent creator is posting on OnlyFans that is then, like, lifted without their consent and being, like, reposted to Pornhub? Are we talking about, a sex worker, probably someone who's like a person of color, who's trans, who's at much greater risk of incarceration and being picked up and profiled by the police? Are we talking about, a sex worker who's encountered some, like, violence and, like, wants to seek recourse, but, like, needs to be protected from, prosecution at the same time? So I think because sex work encompasses such a diverse range of people, and the nature of the work varies, so the types of concerns vary. It's really hard to, like, say, like, this is the type of, like, legal guidance you need. I do think that as the movement has become more more public in the States, that it's become, like, increasingly intersectional, that it's really allowed for better connections and relationship building between, like, it's not just about labor rights at this point. It's, about prison abolition. It's about racial justice. It's about economic justice. It's about the rights of migrants, right? So that type of approach that we are seeing in the sex workers' rights movement in the States, what it basically means is that it opens up the community to greater networks of support and accessing more resources. And I think that, I'm very optimistic about the future. I think that there are many possibilities for the movement, and that there are also many, like, lessons that we can learn from allies abroad, and from folks who are doing this type of organizing work in other countries with other conditions, where maybe sex work is decriminalized, where maybe there are also, like, different policies that folks are subject to in terms of how they navigate their digital presence. Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you for that answer. I think that informs yourself pretty well. I'm just waiting for someone in chat to clarify because I don't want to waste your time here, but I just want to do a few more questions. So while they're trying to clarify their current question, one of my question is, has there been any sort of like, we keep talking about social media platforms, and obviously they're built on networks and different platforms. And actually, I'm citing one of these. There was a Mastodon instance for sex workers that was made a while back called Switter, that was made by techie sex workers for sex workers. I wanted to know, have you seen more, particularly with Sesta and Fosta, a push for those sort of like make our own platforms, controlled by our own platforms, and what's been the reaction have you seen, if any, from the tech world at these sort of attempts?
Well, I mean, Twitter was shut down. So
I know, I'm just having this example. Yeah,
it was a direct result of Fosta Sesta. So I think that's probably the most prominent example. And I don't think it's possible to create that type of community very publicly at this point. I mean, I belong to, private communities, like Signal groups, WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups,
Telegram
that all,
for the LGBT shout out.
yeah. So I mean, it's not that there are no spaces anymore, but if you're just someone starting out, if you're not public in some, if there's no way for people to find you, I think it's hard. There are many barriers to entry, I think. And especially during this time when you're very much reliant on the relationships you build digitally, because you're not, I'm not able to go to a strip club and talk to my coworkers at this moment. I could, but I really made certain decisions to, not do that type of work because of, you know, concerns about COVID, right? So many people who were doing in-person work, who maybe had more access to colleagues, that's not necessarily a possibility anymore. I do think that there's great, potential to create alternatives, and it's something that I talk a lot about with people who are far more savvy about technology than I am. But again, I think it requires that coalition building, and I think right now is also a moment when more people are open to doing that, and that there's a process of destigmatization happening when it relates to sex work in the States in particular. And that there is greater openness for that. I mean, after all, iBeam did, fund the Veil Machine project. And I think that's amazing. I think that offering a sex worker collective that type of platform and access to a mainstream audience and funding is exactly the type of thing that has to keep happening. And hopefully many of these institutional alliances with major organizations that are concerned about the state of digital civil liberties, hopefully that elevates the movement, and it benefits us in the long run.
Yeah, because just to go on my own mini rant here, just from my perspective on this, is what's been really frustrating for me is twofold. One, and thank you for the lemons again, cringy as fuck. I think he's pay. It's I feel like I'm at a strip club and he's just paying us. But that one is where was I going with this? That two issues that I have is that you see these sort of you have. Sorry, my brain's dying. I just want to take a sip real quick. And we lost visual feed, but I think we can still hear you. So one big issue that I've had is sort of I felt like, as someone who grew up with a lot of the online hacker scene stuff in the 90s, that there was a lot of the stuff you see now to some degree, not necessarily Tor, but you know what I mean, certain online infrastructure platforms that were for censorship resistant stuff. I feel like that a lot of those were created because the people who created them had these delusional fantasies that when time went on, there would be some big crazy social revolution with a police state, and they would be on the front lines and being the Hugo Chavez hero. And that one of the reasons why, unfortunately, we don't see even the hacker side, not just InfoSec, which I could get because LinkedIn job stuff, not going out there and supporting this, is because every time I see something cool like this where it's like censorship resistant, it's always been like local activists, sex workers, people who grow vegetables, things like that. And all the people who originally created this infrastructure are now just sad people trying to program in Rust at Google, you know? So like, so I feel like they have this thing of like, we didn't get to be the cyberpunk internet heroes, so now we're not going to let anyone do that, and that's why they have this cold shoulder thing. It's like they stole our dream, even though we're the ones who sold out, so that's why we're angry, which is stupid. But my other issue too, and I have to point out to people, and I will comment about back Orifice. I'm glad someone noticed the title of this stream, is that because it's a hacker reference for anyone who doesn't get it, is that I had to point out particularly with Twitter that which I'm always worried about. Like, one of my big fears is because there's so much censorship being cracked down and propaganda on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, that then you have these like snake oil salesman people who are trying to do alternative things. Some of them have names. I'm sorry, something tickle parlor. And I tell people that when sex workers en masse were being censored and kicked off of Twitter, they didn't go to Gab. They made their own thing. And does that tell you about like these supposed like free speech alternative stuff that are not open source and often have the same bad policies, if not worse, as the stuff that they're claiming to rival against? So it's like you're in a minefield no matter what. And again, on the internet, sex workers are also internet citizens. So, if something impacting a section of internet citizens, it's going to impact all internet citizens. So I just wanted to throw that out there just from my perspective because that's why I asked the question of if you've seen any sex working things, because what I've often seen is sex workers actually learning code and building stuff, and then the hackers are just like, Bitcoin, and then they don't do anything. What was I going to...
like a digital dominatrix or something and work out some of these psychological neuroses you mentioned.
Well, the problem is there's people who build stuff in Arch Linux, so I think they're kind of used to that. Anyhow, before G.I. Jack wakes up and kills me, another thing I want to shout out is that sadly, again, I believe they were too busy tonight because I just got messages from them, but it's funny how you're talking about you can't go and like talk to your, like, if I'm not saying you, but like people in general, like strippers can't talk to their sex club family, their sex worker family and stuff that they normally see locally, because we're going to feature, and I'm going to shout them out. The LGBT scene has one in New York called NYC Inferno, and then my friend Andre Shakti runs a thing called Sanctuary the Club, and you can go type that in Google or DuckDuckGo and find that. But what's been your experience with like the virtualization? Because we think of sex work, and the internet the internet's for porn. It's all online, but COVID's impacted everybody. So I've seen like strip clubs being virtualized and stuff like that. What's been your experience with that whole front because of COVID?
Yeah, I think it's actually really incredible because I'm sure there are many people who are going to online shows who otherwise would not think, or have the desire to go in person to a strip club at this point. I've been to a couple cool shows. One is Cyber Tees, which is actually organized by a UK sports union. Yeah, I think they're an excellent example also because, organizing that show comes, from experience, organizing as a workers union. So that's amazing. And there's a group operating out of LA, I believe, most of the participants, but they're called Cyber Clown Girls Show. And you can find that.
That's a famous one, yeah.
On Instagram. Yeah. So I think that's been pretty incredible. And of course, like one-off shows like what Mail Machine did, or the Play For Us Now project. I think a lot of these projects could have certainly existed pre-pandemic, right? But now everyone, is sitting at home, so we kind of have a captive audience. And I think it also opens up the possibility of, just education and destigmatizing what sex work really is, making it really normal, making people realize that, it's a form of entertainment. There are possibilities for connection. It can be artistic, that it's not just, something that you may want to be a consumer of if you're like a straight white male, that the audience base can actually be really wide. And I think that's one of the most gratifying things, honestly. Not that, I have anything against my clients who are straight white men. I have many of them as clients, but also performing for an audience that looks more like me. There's something really great about that. and seeing sex workers show up at each other's show, supporting each other, tipping each other. All of that is, incredibly inspiring. And seeing people show up who are also like, coming from different countries, like all of that. I mean, it feels like we have to kind of look on the bright side at this moment, because who knows what's going to happen in the next week or month or year, right? So I'm really trying to look at all these moments of opportunity rather than being frustrated by lockdowns, and being frustrated by this sense of uncertainty regarding the future. Because I do think there's been some incredibly creative efforts, and that sex workers have done just a great job of continuing to be present and continuing to fight, and continuing to insist on their representation.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to, because I'm also reading the chat list of what you said, and this is great points all around. Someone did write in chat that, like, that I support it as long as it's not a forced situation. I think that's one of the, again, we want people to feel safe, so seeing people work from home. It's also just kind of fun because this sort of happened with everyone, whether you're like a gaming live streamer or you do a hacker group like us or sex workers. It was also kind of fun during COVID to watch people, like, it's like the evolution of movies, where when you see like the early silent movies, they're done like stage plays, because that's like all we know. So like super wide cameras, there's no cuts, it's one continuous. And then as they start realizing, oh, we can start and stop the film and move around, and it starts to become film. So it's kind of fun seeing everyone in the beginning just plop a camera in the corner and have their pole in the background and their Hitachi that they didn't realize was in the shot, and do stuff. And then like after a while, and my drag queen friends were like that too. There's like, oh, we can do like dynamic cameras and stuff. So like people do crazy editing and light moves and outfits and like surprise guests and stuff. So that's been fun. Oh, this is actually a really good question. One of our viewers just asked, do you think, they said girls, but I'm just going to generalize it because a lot of people are in this. Do you think people are going to get onto, I should phrase this, either sex work or platforms that a lot of sex workers are on, for example, OnlyFans, because of things like COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think you already see that, and I think, especially a site like OnlyFans, it really blurs the line between like what actually is sex work. I mean, you don't.
I'm
actually
so
have to be a
mad at
sex
that woman.
to use. Are you talking about Bella Thorne?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a little annoying, right? But like theoretically, you can also be someone who posts like photos of like food or like your cute puppy. Like you can create a fan base for anything, right?
She basically DDoS stand all of OnlyFans for people who don't know what happened.
Yeah, yeah. She caused OnlyFans to create much more restrictive policies around tipping, because she essentially promised or hinted at delivering nudes that she did not deliver to her many fans, and treated sex work as treated her experience on OnlyFans as a form of method acting in order to do research supposedly for a related film that the director later distanced himself from. So it was all together like very embarrassing. But yeah, I think there are many people who are turning to OnlyFans, many people that I personally know, who are already creating erotic content, or images, videos, things that were sexy, but that they weren't necessarily interested in making totally public, or even able to make public on platforms like Instagram. Now that OnlyFans has become like a bit more mainstream and name checked by Beyonce, there are more eyes at it, and I think that's great. I think that whenever people are actually paying for their content, whether that's porn or music or something else, it's really good. It's a sign of respect for the person who's creating that work, because it is labor. So yeah, I have to run now because I have to have my dinner.
That's perfectly fine. I was going to go into a little bit about like how that kind of can go into the topic, if it did, about like kind of gentrification of a community, where it's just sort of like, I've seen that where like you see like a lot of celebrities and popular people like use things from stripper culture, but they don't give back or credit to them in the same way I see people, like we have hackathons, but it's for like building block stuff for Google, and not like, and giving back to like the hackers that actually formed like the basis for the internet and stuff. But thank you so much for being on the stream here. This is very informative. That's why I like. It's like even if we get on a busy day one person, the one person who shows up is always absolutely awesome, provided that we don't have any tech issues because it's this show and we always have tech issues. So thank you for
thank you for having me. I just want to do one shout out.
Sure.
Because, December 7th is International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, and most major cities have usually some kind of event, some kind of public vigil. Obviously, we can't do that right now. Many people are gathering digitally, so I really encourage folks to look up their local December 17th event, and maybe like hook up with like their local sex worker organizing group. And also, I dropped my tip information in the chat if anyone wants to send a tip to my Venmo or PayPal. It's Cult of Babylon, CultofBabylon. And you can follow me on Instagram at elperil, ELLEPERIL. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on there. I'm about to drop it in our main chat here, so hopefully we don't get banned because
Great.
of that. But yes, thank you for that. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll try to do something for the 17th or something. We have to. So yes, thank you so much. You could
on Insta.
Yes. We'll collaborate with something. So thank you for that. You can leave anytime now because we're gonna try to wrap this up. All right. So that. Because again, we reached out and there was a bunch of people who, like, unfortunately at the last moment, we had a bunch of people who are going through emergencies right now. So I hope they're doing okay. Like legit. I don't mean like like a dildo flew out and hit someone in the face. I mean like family emergencies. Yeah. There's still protests going on and stuff like that. So and again, we seem to now we've reached a point after 3+ years that we do sequels to themes. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna do a hacking sex thing for a third time, especially if we actually get to do Exotica. So we will definitely revisit this topic with other cool hackers. I think I'm actually going to. I actually have to keep it on this page, but I'll actually flip this over to the giant face. Giant face. So, because I don't have the videos loaded up here, but we'll flip back in a moment. So, so we have a bit of time left, and as you know, nothing ever works around here. We're advanced hackers that. It reminds me of something they say in Harry Potter with Dumbledore, where it's like it was a secret between these two people, so of course the whole school knows. It's like we are super advanced hackers. If we actually did a tour of our apartment, we have equipment that's like all broken apart, like dissected, and we're doing crazy stuff with programs. So of course, because we're so elite with tech, nothing works ever. And I'm also cursed, so that doesn't help either. Again, this cyber shirt. So we did kind of start late. So what we're gonna do, I guess, to wrap things up, unless someone else pops into the Jitsi at some point, is and someone said it wouldn't be the internet if it wasn't broken. Also, props for someone who recognized the title of our show. I want to get into real quick that if you picked it up, the reason why we called it Back Orifice 2020 is because the Cult of the Cow, High Death Veggie and friends made a program called Back Orifice, which basically allowed you to go literally through the back door of Windows systems at the time. Mm-hmm. And thank you for the. I feel like a stripper right now. We've been getting so many lemons on D-Live.
From this one.
Yes, you like us way too much. There's going to be a knock at the door, and it's you, isn't it? No, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's a lot better than Chatterbait knocking. Anyhow, that's the highlight for tonight. We got there. Hacking.
We got banned.
Hacking is so risque. Even Chatterbait. Anyhow, so we did start a little late because that's what she said. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to air the pre-show, and then I'll be back and do some community update stuff, and then we will end with, I think, Lockpicking Lawyer. Speaking of Back Orifice and Back Orifice 2000 has probably one more update that he told us that we're allowed to use up there, and we're going to still go unless anyone has any questions in chat. Someone said, yeah, I used to open my friend's CD drawers and piss them off. So what you mean is you turned everyone's computer into a cup holder. I very much like that Nexus 6. I'm also guessing you jailbroke Winamp because that's what you did back in. I'm old, so Neo's throwing shit at me right now. I will do the spiel again. Thank you all for watching. We'll hopefully regain the Chatterbait back because we actually do have plans dependent of these type of shit. I was hoping to do maybe we'll get back the next day. I was hoping to do the lockpicking stuff on there. I guess we'll wait until if it's the charity thing after charity, maybe early next year when it's like a normal thing. We might stream from it occasionally, and we have cool ideas for it. But if you do like us, we are currently streaming on Twitch, DLive, and YouTube. And thank you all for who are watching. If you send us bits or lemons or follow or subscribe, we see notifications. We also see notifications for the charity we're going to be doing, not just today, but throughout the month. We are trying to raise money for RAIN. That is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. I know that's a lot of trigger warning words and stuff like that, but basically human beings suck. We want them to suck less. We had an election where we kind of, by like 0.000000028 zeros point half hey penny less suck less. So we're trying to gain money for people to keep sexual abuse hotlines open, physical centers with social distancing, education out there for the masses across the United States. In fact, if anyone needs the helpline, we're going to actually be posting the helpline in the future. I just don't have it ready today because I'm an idiot. We're trying to get those running, and it's done completely through Tiltify. If you are on Twitch, there we have a widget below where you can directly donate while still watching this live feed. For everyone else in chat, boom, mic drop. There's the link for that in the chat if you're on YouTube D Live, and we're checking out Facebook. And we do get notifications when you do donate. And I believe right now last donation was Litho Chasm at $25. And then if I look at the Tiltify page here, the highest amount is appropriately named Syntax, who did the shout out of Hack the Planet for $50. So we do have leaderboards for this. And while we do like anyone, if you want us to like just a little bit more, if you just want us to like do the tip a bit, give us the tip.
Okay.
Zero Cell approved. So yeah, we're gonna do the pre-show. It's a pre-recorded video, but I'll intro it. It's one of my favorite talks from B-Sides Las Vegas. Unfortunately, B-Sides Las Vegas had to cancel this year because out of most of Hacker Summer Camp stuff, they're the most in-person. Like it's literally made by the community for the community, and they felt it was best, especially early on with the COVID symptoms and stuff, just outright cancel. But if you ever, once COVID is over and we have the vaccine and people can stop wearing masks like their chin straps, and which makes me worried about how they go to the bathroom. I don't want to know really badly. Talk about burning out the both ends. Yep, just the tip. Where was I going with this? If you have to go to one thing in Hacker Summer Camp, go to B-Sides Las Vegas. They have really cool tracks, and this is a cool one, which if you were here for our first talk here, it was talking a bit about teledildonics, and we talked a bit about bad vendors. This was a person, I think it's Ben Actus, I think his name is. I'm terrible at names. This is back in 2017. He pwned a bunch of different porn websites, including Pornhub, and the vendor responses are hilarious. So we're going to make up for the laptop just being like, DEFCON 2.1 go brr and fail on us, and air the pre-show right now. So if you have any questions in chat, please let us know. We will still type in chat. Otherwise, I'm going to switch this back over, and then we're going to talk a bit of community stuff, do some last minute, maybe hopefully some donations. We'll go rate a stream on Twitch, and then we'll see what Lockpicking Lawyer has to say, and it's the end of our stream. So without further ado, let's go back on the time warp here.
About a year ago, I showed you my
unfortunately,
absolute favorite
Lockpicking
cylinder.
Lawyer's
This
tiny
well-used,
cock
albeit
has
somewhat short
infiltrated the streams here. There we go. So now that we've gone back in time, let's warp back and see what happens when Pornhub gets Pwned.
Hi everyone, thank you. My name is Ben Actus. This is Pwn All the Porn Apps. Thanks for having me at B-Sides Vegas. I'm super stoked to be here. A little bit about me. I started my career at MITRE, which is a federal research lab. I did a lot of mobile security there. I also did a lot of network sensor work as well. Then I went to Lookout, where I reversed thousands of Android malware samples and some iOS ones as well. Then I spent a year and a half at Synac, where I helped build their mobile attacking toolchain. So how do you at scale reverse apps, statically look for vulns, dynamically look for vulns? I also did a lot of mobile pen tests there too. All of the work today is done under my side business, Cyber Merchants of Death, where I do a lot of bug bounties and training in this area too. So a little bit outline, we'll go through the motivation, a little bit of Android 101 so you understand some of the vulns if you're kind of a novice. Then we'll go through 3 vulnerabilities in apps and easy fixes. So motivation here, we're all humans at the end of the day. Some of us have, sexual urges, and some of us choose to use adult content or pornography apps to meet those urges. But the privacy of these apps are pretty important, right? And there can be some serious consequences if our usage of these apps are inadvertently leaked to others, right? One such example, this is from the New York Post. users were targeted with a malicious application. The idea was users would be tricked to installing like a video codec or an adult content app. What this app would really do would film the user without their consent, right? And then a video would be used to blackmail them and say basically pay me $500 or I share this with a bunch of people, right? So as you can imagine, this would be really damaging to relationships, professional ones, kind of you name it. But in addition to the privacy violation, there's also an actual physical human impact here. Egypt actually leveraged improper implementation, some of the GPS functionality of Grindr to actually track gay people, and those people were actually injured and killed in some cases. So there's big impact here. So are these apps secure? Now, before I go forward, I have to cover a few little Android things here. By default, your Android app has a little protected storage area that only that application can access. If you ask for the external storage permission, you can write to, typically it's the SD card. And that storage is world readable and world writable. What I have up over here is the actual screenshot from the API docs. And they actually say there in the first paragraph, do not store any private information here, right? So anything that could identify a user, photos, etc. They also go out of their way that says you should never write executable code here because any other application on the phone could read that code, modify that code, or delete that code. The other important thing I want to cover is on Android, it's really simple to do HTTPS now. As long as your backend supports it, it's as simple as just doing HTTPS in your domain, right? It actually says it right there in the docs. Yes, it can really be that simple. Now, this isn't going to do your certificate pinning or your key validation, but at least it's something. So the problem is, if you're a pornography app, you're banned from Google Play. So you can't leverage that update mechanism, so you have to roll your own. The problem is, if you go to Stack Overflow and search like how to update non-Google Play app, you get this example here as the top one. And this is a poor implementation because it says, oh, just write to the SD card, right? And we just saw from the other slide, Google tells you in the APIs, you should never do this. So let's look at some vulns here. The first one is known as Planet Prawn. According to their website, they have 1 million satisfied users, 200,000 video and picture sets, 400 professional partners, 30 plus amateur partners as well.
Unsatisfied users.
It says 1 million, which is funny because if you look at the tokens later, like the unique user IDs, we're not at 1 million. So anyway, it's true, right? Now maybe that changed since I reversed it, but anyway, Android Central says the quality is there in the app and the content. Android Authority gave them good reviews, and also Fleshbot too. So vuln number 1. This is man-in-the-middle proxy, in case you're not familiar with it. It's most commonly used for intercepting and viewing HTTPS traffic, but in this case, it's HTTP. So a few things here. You can see my username and password. Also, there's this T value, which is the integer I was alluding to earlier. The reason why that's a problem is if you actually look at how the app does its change password or change email field, it doesn't check your username or password. You just need that token value. So if you knew that, you could change people's passwords. So the other problem is this application, because it's all in plain text communication, anything you search for, any private messages to other users on the site, anyone could see that, right? So that's not good. The other problem, which is more interesting in my opinion, is can we replace their update app? Because they can't be in Google Play. And how this works is, I have some decompiled Java code up here, is in this red rectangle, you got a string, and it's getting this string from the Android manifest. For those of you that don't know, the Android manifest is kind of like the table of contents in an Android app. And all this is doing is saying, hey, look at this version name, store it in this string. So in this case, it's 2.07. Then what it's doing is calling this check for app updates method. And how that works, it goes out again over HTTP to planetprawn.com/app/version, gets a connection, and returns a numeric value. And here's what it looks like. Again, HTTP. Now, if we're a network-capable adversary, we can modify these things, right? And I'll step through that. Oops. So at this point, what you're doing is just comparing, right? Like if the client's outdated compared to what the server tells us, then go through this update path. And how this works is, again, it's going over HTTP, goes to just planetprawn.com/planetprawn.apk, and then it just installs the APK there. So here's a little proof of concept video. Man-in-the-middle proxy in the back, Android video in the front. And if you see the orange font, I've set up a intercept filter. So basically it says pause this traffic if it matches this expression. So it goes out to Planet Prawn, gets the version, I allow the request, and now I'm going to modify this, right? So the server's saying, hey, my latest version is 2.7. I'm going to say, no, it's actually 2.9. Save it. Now I'm going to allow this modified response back to the client. At this point it says update available, and I zoomed in here because I edited out a lot of the adult content. Yeah, sorry guys, I had to get it through PR.
Okay, if you can't find porn on the internet, go home.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, so now it's going out to the server, right? So at this point, you can do a few things. The easiest one for me is I'm just going to change the URL it goes to. But you could do DNS poisoning. You could actually just modify the zip or the APK file that comes in at this point. But I'm just changing it to a subnet on my local IP, and I'm calling it planetprawn.apk, which is not the real one. At this point, it's being downloaded. I'm saying, hey, open it. Open the top one. And at this point, the icon's different, right? Installing. I open it, and boom. Not the porn you're looking for. Yeah, so obviously this is not the legit app, right? So if I was an adversary, I could do a lot of things at this point, right? Worst case, I could replace it with a rooted version of the app, right, where I try to root your phone with an exploit and persist that way. I could add additional permissions, like camera and things like that, and just kind of shove it into the binary so it looks like the real one, but I'm actually doing other things in the background. And even worst case, if I don't have any new permissions, I still have read external storage. So I could like kind of peruse external storage looking for embarrassing photos or something. Third vuln, they're storing this update file in a world-readable, world-writable location, right? So if I'm a malicious app, I could just watch this directory and swap it out that way too. So the vendor was actually really positive. They basically thanked me. They said, we're going to fix it ASAP. Andy replied. I don't know what Andy's role is, but he wanted to fix it, so cool. Disclosure timeline, I emailed them end of the month. They actually responded, I think, within an hour, which was great. It still hasn't been fixed yet, but maybe this morning they did, so we'll see. So they're doing insecure communication. There's no integrity check of that update file, and they're saving that update file on external storage. So next one, Perfect Girls. This one's kind of funny. So if you go to their website, they're mimicking Google Play, but this is actually not Google Play, which is really funny. Second thing is they have fake reviews, and if you go in the source code, it's just like hard-coded values in here, which is also really funny. It gets better. They reported the app as Porndroid, which is not the name of the app, and this was actually a piece of Android malware from like 2 years ago. The other funny thing is they have like fake reviews. I don't know why they put like a fake, can you help me reset my password review? I don't know, I thought that was funny. So, vuln number one for Perfect Girls. How this one works, the client sends its version out to the server and then the server replies. So this one's saying, hey, I'm running version 2.09. The server responds with two things this time. One, a Boolean value, true or false, that says, is there an update available? And two, a version number. So here's how this works. So the first check is that Boolean, right? Is an update available, true or false? And I'm going to go through a little bit of Android assembly here just because we're going to debug in a couple slides. So this if statement becomes 3 lines right there. So it's basically get a Boolean, and then if that is equal to 0, go down one path. If not, go down the other path. Then there's the second check, that numeric one. And this value is actually hard-coded as a string in the app. It's not in that manifest file. And it's just saying, hey, if my client version is outdated from the server one, then go ahead and do an update. And again, this one if statement comes about 4 lines because we're comparing floats. And then it does a difference, and if that difference is equal to 0 or less than equal to 0, go down one path, otherwise go through another path. So this should be super easy, right? Because like the client's app's already outdated. So I'm like, okay, cool, it's going out. Client's saying it's 2.09. Server says the new one is like 2.10 or something like that. And I'm like, great, this should be the most easy POC ever. So I'm allowing it, allowing a bunch of other things, and it failed, which is really weird. So I start changing and incrementing and decrementing everything on the client end and everything on the server end, and it still wasn't happening. So I'm like, this is really weird, right? Because I told my mentor for this talk, like, this will work, right? So I start going through it, and I'm like, this is weird. This is really strange. That second check, I'm getting the same value twice. So their update mechanism is actually wrong. They compare the client version twice instead of the server one. So their app will actually never update, which is hilarious. So we have IDA Pro, so we can patch their binary. So if they fix this conditional check, they do update, which is great. So we can also do debugging in IDA Pro with Android, in case you guys aren't familiar with that. So what I'm basically saying start debugging. Any of those red lines are breakpoints. So I basically set a bunch of breakpoints right where that first Boolean check is, and then where that numeric check is, which you'll see. And a blue line will indicate that's like the current line we're executing on. And don't worry, I zoom into IDA when it's funny values and stuff. So it takes a second. Now it's launching. Okay, so it gets the client version correctly the first time for the Boolean. Now it's getting values from the server end in the background. We're at the first Boolean check right now, true value. Everything's coded correctly here. It's getting the new values from their server, right? And we're going to go to the left of execution over here because we got the right Boolean value. It's going to pop over here, gets the client version, and now this is where the mistake is because it gets this value twice, right? One of those should be 2.1. So all I did was IDA, I just said, okay, you're now 1, and it's going to go down the update path. So boom, hit continue execution here. It's going to run. And there you go, 2.1 is available. So go ahead, hit download new version. And pow. And I'm going to zoom in on a second here. You can see what I'm doing. So similar kind of attack here. Instead of going to the legitimate update server, which is also HTTP, I'm just going to go to a server I control. I think I call it evil.apk here and download it. Now, you could also, again, like I said, change that APK in transit, so you won't even see a change in address. You could do it that way. And also DNS poison and do a bunch of other stuff here too. So at this point, the app pops up, and I had to edit out a bunch of adult content here. So enjoy kittens. So now it's running, it kind of relaunches, and then the update prompt comes. And boom, not the porn you're looking for. So now this one also writes the SD card, which is bad. So disclosure, I emailed the company, and I haven't heard anything. And I even checked my spam folder this morning, so I don't know. So perfect girls, HTTP usage, they're not hashing any kind of integrity check, and they're also writing to external storage. So Pornhub, most of you are probably familiar with this one. The good news is they are using HTTPS, right? Yeah, they have puppy videos on it. And they are doing a hash of the APK being downloaded. The problem is, as you'll see here, how it works is it goes to a URL, says, hey, what's the latest version? And then it's going to reply back if it's out of date, the new APK, the link to it, and then an MD5 with that file, MD5 of the new APK, and a file size. The problem with is you're sending the new file size and hash in a mechanism which is, as an attacker, I can see, so it's trivial to change. At this point, this file is written to external storage, and then they're just going to compare them, and if that matches, then we're good. So all I'm modifying, so what I did was I put a fraudulent cert on the device so I can intercept traffic, right? And what I ended up doing was just change it to a value or a server I control. I'm changing the file size and the MD5. Pretty easy. So here's an example here. And I'm sorry for the potato quality in this video. My screen recorder binary crashed. So I'm going out. It's talking to Pornhub right now. Now at this point, I've deleted the legitimate values, and I'm putting my evil ones, right? So put in my evil MD5 hash here, the new file size, and an evil URL, which I control. And because these are the values the client checks, it assumes everything's good. And at this point, it's updating. Now it's going to my evil URL to get the new update APK. Boop. Download. And it should pop up in a second here. Now, you could do all this just with scripting man-in-the-middle proxy or a little bit of Python. None of these attacks would require like human intervention. Hit install. And open. Cool, right? So Pornhub is a bug bounty. I'm like, awesome, this is really cool. I can get paid for finding these vulns, right? So I submit it, and they're like, hey, cyber merchants of death, thank you, but your update URL is actually not in scope, so we're not going to reward you. And I was like, this sucks, but okay, right? But then I was like, wait a minute, they're still writing to the SD card. I wonder if there's a race condition there. So what I did here was there's that check that I mentioned. I called it checksums check. And what this is doing is going into this bit of code, and all it's doing is getting the file size and the checksum. So it's pretty easy. Then if that condition is met, then it goes ahead and installs the APK that's downloaded. So if I'm an attacker adversary, this is kind of the period of time where I have a race condition, right? So let's do this. So I did it with a debugger just so I could extend that race condition to an unlimited period of time. So I'm doing debugger, start debugging. I'll start up in a second here. Now on Android, you can debug in a few different ways. If you want to cheat, you can take the app, decompile it, add a single flag, and then re-sign it. That's one way, but your signers are not going to match because it's public-private key crypto. The other way is you can have a rooted device, and you can launch anything as root and then attach. Or if you really want to get savvy, you can actually recompile Android from source and change some stuff. So right now it's running, it's doing the update, and I set a breakpoint right where that check occurs. Right here. So at this point, the app is validated, the APK on external storage. It inherently trusts it. And what I'm doing here is I'm just removing their legit app, and I'm copying the name of my like jokey app to the same name that the client is expecting. Right. And then I'm going to enable execution again. And boom, it's updating. Cool. Installing. And also, by the way, you can change the little app icons and shortcuts. I was just being lazy. Cool. All right, so I submit this one, right? So the vendor kind of went back and forth for a while, I think 2 or 3 months. Eventually, I ended up talking to a nasty Nick, who was their main Android dev, I think. And he basically said, hey, thank you. We're aware we're storing things in common ground where other applications can hijack the APK. Sadly, there's little we can do to resolve this issue because of the nature of how we distribute. And I was like, hey, I'm sorry that Google's being unfair to you, but have you considered using these protected storage internal APIs? The difference being like instead of get external dir, it's get dir. It's actually a pretty easy change. At this point, their bug bounty triage person replied to me, do you mind if we close this as informative? And I replied, yeah, I do. I'm a little confused here because I gave you proof of concept video. I gave you an IDA Pro database file, and I cite like mobile OWASP guide saying you really shouldn't write to external storage. I'm confused why this doesn't count. At this point, I think a legal person on their team or someone wrote me back that said, since you're quoting our EULA, let me do as well. We reserve the right to pay whoever we want. We don't think this is a vuln. There's going to be no further negotiation. So I told my girlfriend, all right, I will give a B-Sides Vegas talk then. So, yeah. I joke, but like these are like really bad flaws, and they really should fix them, right? But anyway, so disclosure, first vuln comes out 12:10, then on 12:20, they marked as not in scope. Then I submit the new vuln. Then we actually go back and forth for a bit, which was actually fun. February 1st, dev says it can't fix. A week later, they said, sorry, go away. And then 6/28, they say, hey, I'm going to go public about it. So the other question is, could we do this without a debugger, right? So this is a really neat app, File Observer. Who knows about iNotify in the audience? Some of you? Yeah? Okay. So one of my old school like Graybeard Unix mentors taught me about iNotify, and it's super cool. Basically, it leverages the kernel, and you can basically say, watch a directory for a file change. And you can watch for a lot of different things. Here's all some examples. So you can say, like, tell me when a new file is created, such as update APK. Tell me when something is written to a file. Tell me when a file is closed. So what you could do as an evil app, you could get external permission and then just watch the SD card, and you would watch for one, the writing of it, and then reading of it, because remember it reads file size and does a hash, and then you just do like a symlink really quick. So that's how you do it without a debugger. So Pornhub, they are doing HTTP, which is awesome. They do, yeah, HTTPS, thank you. They are doing an integrity check, which is good. There's improvement on both of these, but it's something. But they are still writing to external storage. So the fixes for these are super easy. Use HTTPS, ideally, doing key pinning and checking your certs, and do not write files to external shared storage. You could write it internally, and there's an allow installed apps or installation of other apps permission. If you want to get really crazy, you could use some native code and patch this stuff in memory if you wanted. There's a lot of things you could do here. So I also want to thank my mentor, Brandon, for a lot of help and mentoring on this. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. My email is ben@cybermerchantsofdeath.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at benra. Yes, question in the gray. Oh, thanks.
So you said that each app has its own special place where it can store things.
Yep.
How big can that space be?
As big as you want, right? So the original idea was like a lot of Android phones had really, really tiny like protected storage, and you had big storage for like other things. Most of the phones now, even like the $50 Amazon ones, you have like 40 gigs available for internal, right? Yeah. Gentlemen in the, yeah.
With regard to installing your evil APK, isn't that getting installed side by side with the existing app, because you're not able to spoof their signature on their APK, right? Otherwise, it would, like if you try to use the same bundle identifier.
Yeah, but they don't check the signature, right? So what's really cool about Android, though, right, is it's public-private key crypto, right? So unless they lose their private key, I can't masquerade as them, right? So smart developers, right, like the ideal way of doing it is you would check for that, right? Instead of doing like the hashes over the air, that'd be a better way of doing it.
So you are able to overwrite their APK when you install your evil one then?
No, both would exist, right?
Okay.
You could probably delete things in such a way where that wouldn't work, right?
Okay.
But great question, though, by the way.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No. All right.
Thank you all.
Hey, thanks for coming.
And that was the cool back in the day talk as I get rid of. I actually am shocked we got this long without going through weird spam stuff. Is spam, spam. Hopefully that pushes that up a bit. So, yeah. DC 201 rocks, hacks, the Panit, and charity link. That should about do it. Yep. So that was the one of my favorite talks from B-Sides Las Vegas. That was originally the pre-show. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone else is going to stop by with the stuff. So we basically went through all of our materials. So thank you everyone for watching. What I'm going to leave with is a spiel. And I'm also going to update you on things we're going to try to do soon, including what our next meeting pretty much is going to be and beyond. So, again, thank you everyone for watching tonight. This was really fun with everyone on here because we... Oh, you're yawning. I thought something new happened. Because, like, my joke was, oh, this is the meeting where we get to test the sensors. And ironically, whether it was Twitch, DLive, YouTube, and especially Facebook... every platform liked us except for the one that talks about boobs. That's still just I usually say we can never win. I really can never win. Oh, Vi is streaming. And actually, hang on. Yeah, unfortunately, my original person I was gonna raid is not on the stream right now. So, because we're still trying to find someone else who's going to raid. So, you know what I'm gonna do? Oh no, he is streaming. Okay, yay. What we'll do is we'll go to the other person, but we'll definitely host Vi in a moment. Vi used to go to our meetings physically when he was visiting New York. He's all the way. He's from Rochester, Michigan, not Rochester, New York, Michigan, in the middle. Also, I like the glare on the screen. It's like reflecting off your glasses.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like you look like you have one of those DBZ scanners. It's like it's over 9,000. 9,000. How is this possible? So without dilly-dallying, again, thank you for all watching the stream. Again, just for those people who tune in at the last second, we are DEFCON 201. Woohoo! We are a computer hacker, maker, tinkerer, all of our hack the crap out of everything group that meets third Friday of every month, and it's November 20th, the third Friday of the month. Who knew? Someone just said you are Borg. So, too bad G.I. Jack's asleep right now. So, we are going to have another meeting before the end of the year, and hopefully that will happen before the world officially ends. Our next meeting, third Friday of the month, so that is December 18th. It will probably start again at 6 p.m. I will tell you right now, I don't know particularly what content's going to be in that, but two things. One, that's going to be the first of, we're going to start going away from like talks, like these feel like mini cons for the past couple of months, and we're going to have like maybe one, maybe two people speaking, but we're going to go into a format where we're just going to open up like the Jitsi room to all of you folks, and provided that you aren't doing things, we'd rather you do things that are like phone losers and not 8chan. Let's put it that way. As long as you're not doing 8chan crap, we will have you on there and we can all talk. So it's going to be more of a relaxed, in-person sort of talking thing. And also next month, there might be unintentionally a mini theme, but the people I'm thinking, the one or two people that I want to speak next month, it's just us hanging out. It's just going to be random topics. I really don't think we're going to have a solid theme until April. And then March next year will be, and I don't know what day is that, but March next year in 2021, provided that the meteorite doesn't hit us, spoilers, that would be March 19th will be our 4-year anniversary. So whether we're in person or online, and note that our anniversary was the first one where we had to virtualize all this stuff. So we had like literal like strippers and beer and stuff, and that didn't happen. But whether it's in person or online, we are going to do some really awesome things for that. Another thing we're planning immediate in the future is we're supposed to have a live stream on Thanksgiving. We want to basically do a Hacker Thanksgiving special, especially to do the donate stuff. And I posted the link again, chat, for RAIN. We are trying to raise money for the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. We're trying to prevent sexual abuse and get education for people and help for people who've been abused, which is unfortunately a lot, including people, especially a lot of people we know in the community. Some of them might even be us. Not perpetrating victims, you know. We already know who's perpetrating this. For some reason, you know how they said, I think in that epic rap battle video, if your last name was in, it was time to get out in terms of Russia. I feel like that's the way it is with Steen recently. You should, well, actually, if you want to connect it, you have Trump, and then his nephew is Kushner. Anyhow, before we get into minds.com, before we get into parlor conspiracies, this has basically been our show. Like I said, we're going to try to do a Thanksgiving theme up. Join me this Saturday for our second Master of Unlocking episode. I don't know if you can hand it to me, but I'll give you a short preview here. It's the big metal one. I found one of the weirdest locks you can possibly and we're not just going to pick it. We're not just going to attempt to bypass it. We're actually going to install this in a door, so we're going to do this properly. So I hope to see you in about a day and a half time. That will be this Saturday. That's March 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to do something cool that you will probably see me in, you might see Cyricel in, depending on what convenience store we leave and what time we wake up at. Oh, trust me, it is like masturbation. If you think we barely did any innuendos this episode. Master Unlocking, you can't. It's like picking locks and running fiber through a building. It's like a freaking minesweeper landmine of innuendos. Like you just have to accept the fact that that's what's going to happen. But if you want to do something really neat, I'm gonna drop this in chat. One of the coolest people that likes to interact with us, named Zoe. who does a lot of stuff in OWASP. Basically, she's like DEFCON 201, but way more competent than all of us put together, except she's like one actual human being. Think of someone who's as useful and talented as Sarasil, but just so happens to have boobs, and that's Zoe. And I mean that in the most respectful way. She's really absolutely amazing, but she...
I don't know. I kind of maybe... I shouldn't be doing that.
That's why we got banned from Chatterbait. No.
Exactly.
our moobs combined. So it's also probably the cyber on my shirt. So yeah, we just dropped the link. It's on meetup.com. It's in Women in AppSec. We're also probably going to be tweeting a lot of it tomorrow. They're doing a hackathon for something. Let me see, it's how secure transaction hackathon. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be a lot of hackerish stuff. We hope to see you there. I also know, even though I'm not going to drop the link in chat, that Major League Gaming is doing like a hackathon charity thing. It started this morning today, briefly, and it's going to go on Saturday and Sunday. So, I like that we're on delay. Yeah. We're going to do a prank eventually with that, probably. I just want to see, because we're going to raid a person if you're on Twitch. I just want to make sure they're still live streaming. Yes, they are. So this will be funny. So if you're on Twitch, we're gonna stream some... I almost gave him way too much credit and called him Hacker Royalty, but he's a really cool guy. He's a personal friend of mine that I hang out with Hope, and I think he's going to appreciate all the people showing up to his channel. So that was our meeting. It was really exciting. It was really fun to run this on Chatterbait before it blew up. ASMR has boobs and Twitch allows that. Good point. If we can have like, you know, Pokeonomy being like, I am immaculate confection or whatever, and Dr. Disrespect enough said, I think we can allow to, you know, talk about moobs, because what else are you going to talk about? So I don't really know how to end the stream. Oh, I think I know how to end the stream. Hold on. Lockpicking Lawyer has a quick thing to say at the end, and then if you're on Twitch, we're going to raid the stream. Everyone else, thank you for chatting and hanging out. So I guess we'll do the spiel again. We don't have to be on live stream to donate, because we posted in the chat. If you go to that link anytime, I'm actually going to post it one last time in here. You could donate to Rain. We're going to be doing this all month. We might even extend it to the beginning of next month. We shockingly raised, thanks to everyone out there, like Systedax and others. We now got 130. We're already past 1/4 of a way to our goal, and we have a lot of days to the end of the month. And again, we might even do this beginning of December, depending on how it goes. Again, if you like what you see, you can like, share, subscribe on Twitch, DLive, YouTube, and now Facebook. Unfortunately not on Chatterbait yet, but we might get that back soon. And yeah, if you're on Twitch, we hope you enjoy the stream. If not, I hope to see you this Sunday for Master of Unlocking and some of our other future programs like Hack Alt and Commander, which happens Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Archvile Linux Perspective, which won't be on Thanksgiving, but will be there for next month, where our co-founder G.I. Jack dresses in his best BDMS gear, essentially, for bikers, and plays video games and hack stuff on Arch Linux. Thanks for everyone in the chat for being interactive. Dirty Jersey represent, hack the planet, and remember, Fitbits are nothing but modern day Fitbits are modern day Tamagotchis for adults, and the only difference between Tamagotchis and Fitbits is that the poor creature that you're trying to rehabilitate back to health is you. And thank you for that last lemon, cringy as fugs. And we're gonna see what Lockpicking Lawyer had to say, and if you're on Twitch, we're gonna read a stream. If otherwise, happy Movember, and you've already failed November by watching this stream, so good luck out there.
Maybe.
Yeah. You don't know what happens when we turn the cam off. That's why we want the Chatterbait, damn it. So anyhow, that was our show. And again, if you want more information, you can check us out at www.defcon201.org, or follow us on Twitter, defcon201nj. Side Pocket, that's Saracel. Hack the Planet, Dirty Jersey represent.
Hack the Planet.
Peace out, and let's see what this weird last transmission, I think he has something about hacking backdoors. We're going to find out. Peace, everybody. Let's see. What is his video here? Here's the Ultra Elite Hacker video as I turn off the previous pre-show. All right. See you guys. Check us out. DEFCON 201. Lots of cool stuff. And Master of Unlocking. Ta-da!
This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and on this channel I've demonstrated how to penetrate some of the most secure equipment out there, usually using some very simple tools. But it's almost always done right here on my desk. It's a controlled environment that might not be equivalent to field conditions. So today, I'm taking you on the road with me. You see, I just got a call from my ex-girlfriend who's having a problem. Her new boyfriend is apparently having trouble getting in her back door. It's really tight, and she told him to stop trying because all he was doing was pushing really hard, and she was afraid something would break. But she remembered that when we were dating, I used to go in through her back door all the time. This is a picture of her back door. She just sent it to me, and I don't see any reason why this should be a problem. Frankly, it looks looser than it was back when we were dating. So, while her boyfriend's at work, she asked me to come over and see if I could help loosen things up. I of course agreed, so long as I could get it on video and share it on this channel. So, let's drive over and see if we can get in her back door without breaking anything. Okay folks, here we are, and I have to say that my ex-girlfriend's back door is far dirtier than it ever used to be back when we were dating. It seems to have been neglected pretty badly, but I'm actually glad to find it this way. So you can see why I always keep baby wipes handy whenever I do anything like this. So let's get one out and wipe all of this brown residue away. Okay, this is pretty dirty. It might be a 2-wipe job. Okay, now that we have the outside just a little bit cleaner, it's time to flush out the inside as well. And because we need to lubricate this anyway, I'm going to flush out the main opening with a good bit of lube. We just need to be sure to keep a towel underneath that opening so we don't make a mess. Here it makes a lot of sense to be generous with that lubricant. Back doors tend to be neglected, so you can't have too much. Okay, we are almost ready, but before I go any further, I need to put on some rubber for my own protection. Now, depending on various factors, I should note that the opening could be in an awkward position. And all I have to say about that is deal with it. It's not uncommon, especially when you're going in through the back door. Now I can't just shove in my tool. I need to be very gentle and wiggle things into position if I'm going to stand any chance of getting in. I think we're there. All it needs now is a firm shove, and we are in. Now you need to understand that just because I got in her back door doesn't mean that her boyfriend will be able to as well. So I need to spend some time working it in and loosening it up. But I'm going to do that off camera, so that's all I have for you today. If you do have any questions or comments about this, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe, and have a great April 1st.